Chapter 193. The skies above the royal capital of Chu were clear and boundless, with the warm rays of the sun cascading down onto the earth. Occasionally, a few white clouds could be seen drifting by. A white crane swooped down from the skies, soaring into the skies above the Chu country. On the back of the white crane, a handsome young man and a beautiful young lady stood side by side, their robes fluttering in the wind. "I'm back." Qin Wentian gazed down at the royal capital. 2 months felt like an eternity to him. This time around, he had traversed many countries, heading towards the Demon Mountain city of the Grand Xia Empire, where he had an extraordinary experience. This might have been the first time he ventured out into the world, but it was also the first step he had taken towards the Grand Xia Empire. During the refinement grounds, he understood what it meant by, "There's always a sky beyond a sky." Some of the outstanding characters in the Chu country, when placed in the outside world, were truly ordinary. Regardless of Ouyang Guangsheng or Wang Xiao, any one of them would be unrivaled existences below Yuanfu, and could even fight against ordinary Yuanfu cultivators. Even the swallow swordsman, Mu Baifei, and the other two could easily deal with Xikong Mingyue and Orkan. Not only that, during this trip, Qin Wentian had discovered the secret of the Azure Emperor. This was undoubtedly his greatest harvest. In any case, the experience of the refinement grounds at the Celestial Lake would become an important part of his life. The white crane soared through the skies, circling above the Emperor's Star Academy. Many in the crowd inclined their heads, and upon seeing Imo Qingqing's white crane, their eyes froze. After Qin Wentian caused such a huge wave in the royal capital of Chu, he actually disappeared for 2 months. So it turned out that he was together with Imo Qingqing. Because Imo Qingqing rarely appeared in the Emperor's Star Academy, no one discovered her presence. The reason why Qin Wentian was considered missing was because he had attracted too much attention during this period of time. If it was in the past, it would have been normal for him to go out and temper himself for a few months. How did the Emperor's Star Academy become like this? Qin Wentian's countenance grew incredibly unsightly as he stared at the current state of the Emperor's Star Academy. He could only feel a surge of anger coursing through his entire body. The white crane landed in Qin Wentian's courtyard. An instant later, Old Gu, Mustang, Luo Huan, Fan Lu and Qin Yao all appeared in the courtyard. "You're back." When Old Gu saw Qin Wentian and Imo Qingqing, a hint of a smile flickered in his eyes. To him now, compared to before Qin Wentian had left, he seemed to have aged a lot. "Grandfather." Imo Qingqing naturally discovered it as well. Her heart involuntarily trembled. "Teacher, what happened in the academy?" Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Mustang, as bewilderment flashed in his eyes. Why did the current Emperor's Star Academy look so different from before? There were so many buildings missing, as though they had been razed to the ground. This was done by Yu Hanshan and his subordinates from the Azure Emperor Palace. After Yu Qingfeng's death, Yu Hanshan couldn't find what he wanted, so he could only vent his anger on the Emperor's Star Academy. Sadly, even after digging a hole in the Emperor's Star Academy, he still wasn't able to find anything. He also had no way to find out who killed Yu Qingfeng, and could only dejectedly leave. Mustang replied, as a cold glint of light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. The Azure Emperor Palace, Yu Hanshan. He would remember this name. Yu Hanshan didn't suspect Qin Wentian, because he was already a stranger to Qin Wentian. He only saw Yu Qingfeng injuring Qin Wentian before, and subconsciously assumed that Yu Qingfeng was stronger than Qin Wentian. How could he have made such a connection? As for whether or not he suspected the Emperor's Star Academy, only Yu Hanshan himself would know. He had caused the Emperor's Star Academy to be in such a state, and even if he didn't suspect anything, he had still vented the anger in his heart. "How's the current situation in the royal capital?" Qin Wentian asked again. Before he left, the situation here was already extremely grim. Indeed, upon hearing his question, Mustang furrowed his brows as he replied in a heavy voice, "Not very good. The troops led by the Qin clan are pressuring the royal clan very tightly. Hence, the royal clan hopes to eradicate the threat posed by the Emperor's Star Academy as soon as possible." In addition to the interference from the 9 Mystical Palace, the Emperor's Star Academy is currently in grave danger. Not only that, other than the 9 Mystical Palace, I suspect that there are other transcendent powers in the royal capital as well. It's just that they have yet to reveal themselves. Old Gu continued. Since he said this, it was evident that he had some confidence. Currently, the royal capital was filled with a sense of urgency, as though a dark cloud was pressing down on it. Qingcheng, follow me back to see your family first. Old Gu spoke to Mo Qingcheng. As for Wentian, you don't need to care about the matters outside. Focus on your cultivation. Right. Qin Wentian and Mo Qingcheng both nodded their heads. After which, Mo Qingcheng and Old Gu departed together. Mustang's eyes flickered with starlight as he stared at Qin Wentian. After which, he nodded his head lightly, as though he was gratified. He didn't say anything else and merely patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders before departing. Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Luo Huan. Luo Huan was still as sexy and beautiful as ever, but there seemed to be something missing compared to the past. It was as though she was angry. That's right, Luo Huan was no longer as passionate as before. The her in the past always had a frivolous air about her. Maybe it was because she was filled with yearning for life. However, her old friend of many years, Mountain, had died. Next, the Emperor's Star Academy was facing an unprecedented crisis, and they were even being bullied by the Azure Emperor Palace. As a member of the Emperor's Star Academy, she was powerless to resist. Such a feeling made Luo Huan feel extremely unbearable, but what else could she do? She could only force a smile on her face. Sister Luo Huan. Qin Wentian sighed in his heart as he sensed the depressing aura radiating from his senior sister. He still remembered the first time he met Luo Huan. On a wall in the Sky Harmony City, Luo Huan's alluring figure could be seen sprinting, causing people to feel as though they were filled with sunshine. Walking forward, Qin Wentian gave Luo Huan a hug. As she released her hug, a playful smile appeared on her beautiful face as she stared at Qin Wentian. Smelly brat, you actually dare to take advantage of your senior sister so brazenly? Who asked senior sister to be so beautiful? Qin Wentian laughed in a silly manner. You sure have a sweet mouth. Luo Huan rolled her eyes at Qin Wentian. This junior brother of hers, compared to a year ago, had truly transformed. His entire demeanor was completely different. Senior sister. Fan Lu walked towards Luo Huan, opening his arms wide. His gaze was gentle and clear, wanting to give Luo Huan a hug as well. Damn fatty, you dare to come up and try. Luo Huan suddenly interjected, as she stared at Fan Lu with a smile that was not a smile. Momentarily, an expression of grievance appeared on Fan Li's face as he replied, Senior sister, you can't be so biased. Who asked you to not be as handsome as junior brother Qin? Luo Huan giggled as she lifted her foot and left. As long as she could see that Qin Wentian was safe and sound, it was enough. Fan Lu bitterly smiled, but when he turned to look at Qin Wentian, his eyes lit up as he asked, Boss, where did you go? Did you make any progress with the great beauty Mo? Seeing the lecherous look in Fan Li's eyes, Qin Wentian cursed in a low voice, Fatty, what's your current cultivation level? Peak of the arterial circulation realm, slower than you again. Fan Lu shrugged, causing Qin Wentian to be slightly bewildered. But when he thought of Fan Li's ability, which allowed him to easily see through the cultivation bases of others, he understood. This damned fatty must have already seen through his breakthrough to Yuanfu. In that case, quickly go back and cultivate. Qin Wentian laughed. Don't worry, fatty, am a genius. Do you think I won't be able to catch up to you? Swaying his fat body, Fan Lu swaggered away. Only then did Qin Wentian turn to Qin Yao as he called out in a gentle voice, Sis. As he spoke, Qin Wentian gave Qin Yao a hug. You're already so big, yet you're still so playful. Let me go get you something to eat. Qin Yao rolled her eyes at Qin Wentian. She was still as youthful and beautiful as ever. A white blur dashed over as Little Rascal dashed into Qin Wentian's embrace. Little Rascal's speed is getting faster and faster. Qin Wentian rubbed Little Rascal's little head. However, Little Rascal didn't seem to have grown in size. He didn't know if Little Rascal's size would only appear when he transformed. After returning to the Emperor's Star Academy, Qin Wentian kept a low profile and quietly cultivated in his courtyard. Now that he had stepped into Yuanfu, he needed to consolidate his foundations and get used to the new Yuanfu realm. In fact, very few people in the royal capital knew that Qin Wentian had returned. Or rather, they didn't know what Qin Wentian had been doing during this period of time. This name had not been heard for a very long time, and gradually, it faded from the memories of the masses. No matter what kind of glory a person had created, time would still dilute people's memories of him. After all, everyone had their own lives, and there were too many things that they needed to pay attention to. Only when they reappeared one day would people remember that such a person once existed. In the blink of an eye, another half a month passed. Occasionally, there would be bloody battles occurring in the royal capital, and the most common one would be the bloody battle between the royal clan and the Emperor's Star Academy. Sake Street was a restaurant street in the imperial city. This street was tens of thousands of meters long, and it was very wide. There were all kinds of restaurants on both sides, and they were all at least 2 stories high. Many people liked to drink at the tables on the balconies of the restaurants, drinking and chatting. Watching the people below was also a kind of pleasure. Sake Street was very close to the Emperor's Star Academy. Currently, this area was occupied by the students of the Royal Academy, and they even stayed here to monitor the movements of the Emperor's Star Academy. At this moment, a certain inn was no longer as noisy as it was in the past. On the balcony, Yi Ran of the Yi clan and Elder Yu of the Royal Academy were currently enjoying their wine. Sitting at the same table as them were a few other young men, and one of them was clad in white. This young man was none other than Yi Wuk, exuding an extraordinary demeanor. Wuk, congratulations on stepping into the second level of Yuanfu. Elder Yu bowed to Yi Wuk, silently admiring this young man in front of him. Yi Wuk was already ranked number 4 among the 10 prodigies of the royal capital, pushing Qiu Mo down. And now, his strength had improved yet again, stepping into the second level of Yuanfu. It's been so long, yet I only broke through to the next level. There's nothing to congratulate me about. Xikong, on the other hand, is the one who should be congratulated instead since he has already stepped into Yuanfu. Yi Wuk smiled as he glanced at Xikong Mingyue. Xikong Mingyue, however, didn't have an expression of happiness on his face. He was extremely calm as he drank his wine together with Yi Wuk and the rest, yet his eyes were filled with sharpness. In order to help him recover from his injuries, Xikong Mingyue had paid a huge price. And after his injuries were healed, he profited from the misfortune and stepped into Yuanfu. As for his injuries, they were inflicted by Qin Wentian. How could he forget the humiliation he suffered that day? He really wanted to fight with Qin Wentian again. Now that he had condensed an extremely powerful third astral soul, even if Qin Wentian had also stepped into Yuanfu, he still had the confidence to fight against him. How hateful, Qin Wentian had actually vanished without a trace. Not long ago, there were rumors that he had returned, but Xikong Mingyue didn't know if it was true or false. Chapter 194. During these days, Qin Wentian quietly cultivated, keeping a low profile. After the previous experience of being assassinated, he knew that even if there were people who wanted him dead in the dark, the Emperor's Star Academy wouldn't be able to find out who it was that wanted him dead. 9 Mystical Palace, Royal Clan, Yi Clan, or O Clan. There was no way to investigate. That shadowy figure who almost killed Qin Wentian was killed on the spot, and all the clues were cut off. To Qin Wentian, the most important thing now was still to cultivate. In the courtyard, Qin Wentian opened his eyes, exuding a demonic aura. Now that he had condensed an innate link with the demon sovereign constellation, the astral energy he absorbed from the constellation contained a powerful demonic qi. This allowed him to better cultivate the fiend transformation art. Boss. Fan Lu walked over. Qin Wentian stared at him as he asked, "Not going to cultivate again?" "Teacher Mustang wants to lead some disciples to clear a street. Do you want to go?" Fan Lu asked Qin Wentian. "Clear a street?" Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. "Yes, recently our Emperor's Star Academy has been besieged from all sides. The influence of the royal clan has already extended to our academy. Before this, because of the Azure Emperor Palace, the academy could only endure silently. But now, teacher can no longer sit still and wants to launch a sneak attack, wiping out all the people on Sake Street." Fan Lu explained. "The royal clan dares to be so audacious to act so recklessly in the vicinity of our Emperor's Star Academy?" Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. "That's because they have a few extremely powerful characters with them. I have no idea where they came from, but each of them is in charge of a district. Our Emperor's Star Academy doesn't dare to act recklessly. Teacher said that these people might be from the 9 Mystical Palace, and they want to force our academy into a corner." Fan Lu replied. Qin Wentian stood up, "I'll go with you guys." Don't worry. Teacher has tacitly agreed for me to come. He said that this operation is to teach the royal clan a lesson." Fan Lu grinned, filled with anticipation. Most probably, the higher-ups of the academy would be participating in this operation. Qin Wentian and the rest quickly gathered at a certain location in the Emperor's Star Academy. Mustang gazed at them as he commanded, "Let's split up and meet up at Clear River Street. Wentian, you and I will be together." "All right." Everyone nodded. After which, they left one after another. This way, they wouldn't attract attention in a short period of time. On Sake Street, Yi Wuk, who was drinking, glanced downwards as a look of confusion appeared on his face. The number of people coming here seems to be quite frequent. Beside him, Yi Ran and Elder Yu squinted their eyes slightly. They seemed to have sensed something unusual as well. "Spread the news, those from the Emperor's Star Academy have arrived." Yi Wuke gazed at the inn as he spoke. Very quickly, the entire Qinghe Street became lively. Some of the people who were drinking quietly hid in the inn, not daring to cause any trouble. They could only watch from the sidelines. Diagonally across from Yi Wuk's inn, a group of people appeared, causing Yi Wuk and Sikong Mingyue's expressions to freeze. "Mustang, Qin Wentian." Indeed, Qin Wentian's injuries have long since healed. Just like what the news said, after disappearing for 2 months, he has appeared once again. A sharp light flashed in Sikong Mingyue's eyes, piercing towards Qin Wentian. However, Qin Wentian didn't even spare a glance in his direction, causing Sikong Mingyue to coldly laugh in his heart. Silhouettes unceasingly walked out from the inn, and very swiftly, on the street between the 2 rows of inns, a scene of a confrontation between 2 parties. A powerful battle intent permeated the air. "Kill!" A low voice abruptly rang out as both parties clashed. The weakest among them had a cultivation base at the 7th level of arterial circulation, while the stronger ones had a cultivation base at the 2nd level of Yuanfu. Without wasting any time, they directly started the battle. Upon seeing such a scene, Qin Wentian understood that the situation had already reached a point where only one side could survive. Senior sister Luo Huan has also stepped into Yuanfu. Qin Wentian stared at Luo Huan, who was like a goddess of death, mercilessly reaping the lives of her opponents. In her heart, an intense killing intent burned. "Wuk." Yi Ran's gaze shifted to Yi Wuk. For this battle, it was evident that his opponents had come prepared, and held the advantage. Although more and more experts were rushing over from afar, the Emperor's Star Academy was also sending in more experts to join the fray. Boom! On the rooftop of an inn, the silhouette of an expert descended as a terrifying aura permeated the air. This person was clad in black robes, and he stared downwards with an intense killing intent. However, after he appeared, another silhouette appeared at the rooftop of the inn opposite him. That silhouette calmly stood there, yet he gave off a feeling of immense power. The 2 of them didn't move, and only stared at each other. Evidently, they could feel the threat emanating from each other. Cracking sounds rang out, and the inn beneath their feet seemed to be unable to withstand that oppressive aura. Gradually, cracks appeared on the walls of the inn before it collapsed, transforming into rubble. However, they still stood there, incomparably calm. The terrifying aura gushed forth, causing a terrifying gust of cold wind to blow. Boom! That black-robed expert took a step forward, punching out with a simple punch, causing a black-colored tempest to manifest in the air. However, that old man still stood there calmly, his long white beard fluttering in the wind. At the instant the black-robed expert neared, a palm imprint blasted out. The instant this palm imprint blasted out, tens of thousands of palm imprints suppressed the heavens and earth, while the terrifying black-colored tempest also erupted forth. The terrifying destructive chi wreaked havoc in the surroundings, causing numerous inns to collapse. The entire street was on the verge of being destroyed, and many of the spectators retreated far away as they stared at the ruins, their hearts trembling with fear. An expert at the upper 3 levels of Yuanfu. This time around, both sides are really going to fight for real. The hearts of the spectators trembled. Demonic beasts danced in the air, and from afar, more and more experts rushed over. Not only from the Royal Academy, even those from the Emperor's Star Academy were madly rushing over. A small-scale battle seemed to have caused a chain reaction, gradually turning this place into a battlefield. The inn Yuwok was in didn't collapse. His gaze was sharp as he stared in the direction of Mustang. Sipping on a cup of wine, he coldly stated, "Mustang, are you trying to start a war?" Qin Wentian slowly shifted his gaze onto Yuwok. He had long since heard of Yuwok's name. That was more than a year ago. The reason why he broke off the engagement with Autumn Snow was because the Yi clan had used Yuwok's name to propose a marriage to Autumn Snow. After that, he had met Yuwok a few more times. This person was indifferent in handling matters, and from that indifferent attitude, one could see the pride in his heart. Mustang didn't bother with Yuwok. Although Yuwok was powerful, according to seniority, he could still be considered a junior. Since Yuwok spoke to him in such a manner, there was no need for Mustang to bother with him. "You sure know how to act." Yi Ran lightly laughed, as he stated to Yuwok, "Wuk, based on your cultivation base at the 2nd level of Yuanfu, I'm afraid that elder from the Emperor's Star Academy won't be your opponent in a short period of time." The elder he was referring to was naturally Mustang. However, upon hearing that Yuwok had already stepped into the 2nd level of Yuanfu, Qin Wentian was somewhat taken aback. "Compete with him?" Yuwok laughed as he glanced at Mustang. "There's no meaning to it." "Indeed, there's no meaning to it. You are an entire generation lower than him." Yi Ran's words contained hints of flattery. After all, in the Yi clan, Yuwok's status was extraordinary. As an elder from a branch family, his authority couldn't be compared to Yuwok's. Especially now that Yuwok's cultivation base wasn't any weaker than his. Mustang casually laughed, as he stared at Qin Wentian, feeling gratified in his heart. Mustang had the heavenly eyes astral soul, and could naturally tell that Qin Wentian had already broken through to Yuanfu. Back then, when Qin Wentian was at the arterial circulation realm, he had always been able to fight against geniuses like Sikong Mingyue and Luo Qianqiu. Now that he had stepped into Yuanfu, even if he couldn't contend against Yuwok for now, based on Qin Wentian's experience, it wouldn't be long before he could trample Yuwok beneath his feet. As for Sikong Mingyue, he had already been completely ignored by Mustang. "I'm already old, and my achievements are limited. However, Wentian, you are different. Don't put these self-proclaimed geniuses of Chu in your eyes, just treat them as ordinary mortals. You have to broaden your horizons, don't limit yourself to comparing yourself to these people." Mustang spoke to Qin Wentian, as though he was instructing Qin Wentian. However, wasn't it also a reply to Yuwok? He was telling Qin Wentian not to compare himself to these people. Evidently, he was saying that Yuwok and the others didn't have the qualifications to compare themselves to Qin Wentian. And indeed, upon hearing Mustang's words, Yuwok's indifferent eyes narrowed, as a glint of sharpness flickered within. As for Yi Ran, he directly stared at Mustang as he coldly stated, "What a joke. Time passes so quickly. Back then when I went to the Sky Harmony City, you had just started your cultivation journey. At that time, the Yi clan went to the Bai clan to propose marriage. Actually, I had already noticed you that night when you were still at the Bai clan, and followed you to the Qin clan. Now that you've already reached such a level, it feels so surreal. The Bai clan must be regretting their decision now, right? Mustang sighed. Hearing Mustang's tone, Qin Wentian could sense a hint of sadness. He suddenly thought that maybe Teacher Mustang wanted to seek revenge on the Yi clan. Mountain was raised by Teacher Mustang, and Mustang naturally knew about the matter of him being intercepted by Yi Wuk when he was pursuing Qin Wentian. As he thought of this, Qin Wentian's heart trembled. Today, Teacher Mustang wanted to kill Yi Wuk. Yes, that must be the case. Teacher Mustang must have come for Yi Wuk. As he thought of the deaths of Mountain and Zi Jun, Qin Wentian's gaze gradually sharpened. The intensity of the battle grew increasingly intense, as more and more experts rushed over. The small-scale battle had already escalated into a large-scale battle. Not only that, Qin Wentian noticed that Xiao Lan and the rest had also arrived. Xiao Lu, Wu Chong, Wang Teng, and the rest were all here. As for the people on the streets, they all hurriedly retreated further away, in case they were caught in the crossfire. Only to see Sikong Mingyue slowly standing up, as he stood in the air. This undoubtedly proved that he had already broken through to Yuanfu. A terrifying killing intent erupted forth from Sikong Mingyue, as he pointed his finger at Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian, get the hell out here and fight me. Chapter 195. Sikong Mingyue's battle intent surged as he lunged towards the inn Qin Wentian was in. Battle, he had to personally wash away the humiliation Qin Wentian had given him. At the same time, he wanted to regain his confidence and untie the knot in his heart. Xiao Lan, Yi Wuk and Xiao Lok were all staring in the direction of Qin Wentian. Although they weren't the ones who wanted to kill Qin Wentian back then, Qin Wentian's luck was truly too good. Even after being stabbed in the heart, he didn't die, and even reappeared after disappearing for a period of time. However, even after hearing Sikong Mingyue's arrogant words, Qin Wentian still sat there quietly, drinking his wine, treating Sikong Mingyue as heir. Teacher, let bygones be bygones. We should look forward to the future. Qin Wentian could feel Mustang's gloomy mood, and he tried to persuade him. He was afraid that his teacher would be too impulsive. Mustang inclined his head and glanced at Qin Wentian. He didn't expect that this disciple of his would be able to see through his thoughts. Smiling, he replied, look forward to the future. However, some debts have to be repaid. The two of them conversed as though there was no one else present. The battle in the air and on the ground didn't attract their attention at all. Even Sikong Mingyue's challenge was directly ignored. This caused Sikong Mingyue's countenance to turn unsightly. His battle intent grew stronger and stronger, and with a wave of his palms, an ancient slaughter imprint appeared, blasting towards the space above the heads of Qin Wentian and Mustang. With a deafening boom, the roof of the inn was directly smashed into smithereens. Above Qin Wentian and Mustang was the sky. A few silhouettes appeared beside Qin Wentian and Mustang, floating in the air. Rain, who was clad in white, was among them. These were the Yuanfu students of the Emperor Star Academy. Upon seeing Xiao Lan and the rest staring at Qin Wentian like tigers preying on their prey, they immediately rushed over to protect him. After the previous lesson, the Emperor Star Academy wouldn't allow Qin Wentian to be in a chaotic battle again. This was to prevent him from being ambushed by experts. Looks like I overestimated you. Sikong Mingyue swept his gaze across the crowd, as a calm smile appeared on his face. He wasn't angered at all. Since Qin Wentian didn't dare to fight, there was no need for Sikong Mingyue to be angered. However, with the current situation today, even if Qin Wentian didn't want to fight, it would be difficult for him to do so. Qin Wentian acted as though he didn't hear Sikong Mingyue's words. In truth, when he saw Sikong Mingyue stepping out to challenge him, he didn't care about him at all. Although Sikong Mingyue was extremely powerful, with Qin Wentian's current understanding of his own strength, he should be able to deal with him easily. Hence, the current him didn't even view Sikong Mingyue as a worthy opponent. Naturally, this wasn't the reason why Qin Wentian didn't want to fight. Even if he didn't view Sikong Mingyue as a worthy opponent, he would still be able to deal with Sikong Mingyue in passing. The reason why he didn't act was because he wanted to sit down and drink with Teacher Mustang. From the gloomy tone of Teacher Mustang's voice, Qin Wentian couldn't help but feel a little sad. As a disciple, he wasn't doing his job well. If it wasn't for Teacher Mustang back then, how would there be the current Qin Wentian? Teacher. Qin Wentian didn't try to persuade Mustang any further. He continued to pour wine for Mustang, and the two of them drank mouthful after mouthful, feeling extremely satisfied. In my entire life, the thing I'm most proud of is having all of you as my disciples. Although, I didn't teach you guys much, especially you. In fact, I didn't even do what a teacher should do. Mustang placed his wine cup down, as he smiled at Qin Wentian. After which, he slowly stood up, and his gaze abruptly turned sharp as he swept his gaze onto Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, Wang Teng, as well as Xiao Lan. At this moment, Mustang's gaze was incomparably sharp, as though it could penetrate through a person. An intense killing intent radiated from him. Not only did he want to kill Yi Wuk, he also wanted to kill Wu Chong, Wang Teng, and Xiao Lan. If it wasn't for Xiao Lan, the royal clan wouldn't have dared to fall out with the Emperor's Star Academy so quickly. However, Mustang was very clear on how difficult it was to kill Xiao Lan. Not to mention his own strength, the power he represented was something that even the Emperor's Star Academy couldn't afford to offend. The Xiao faction of the Nine Mystical Palace was like a gigantic mountain pressing down on him. He knew that even if the Emperor's Star Academy dared to kill Chu Tianjiao, they wouldn't dare to be too ruthless towards Xiao Lan, even if Xiao Lan was here to destroy the Emperor's Star Academy. Although this was a tragedy, it was the truth. Xiao Lan could only rely on himself to deal with the Emperor's Star Academy, while the Nine Mystical Palace stood in the shadows. If they killed Xiao Lan, what the Emperor's Star Academy would have to face would be the wrath of the Xiao faction of the Nine Mystical Palace. Many buildings in the surroundings collapsed one after another, causing the shop owners to feel heartache. However, in the face of these two gigantic existences, they could only concede defeat. In the air above Sake Street, other than the two combatants, there were also two old men standing opposite each other. Both of them were exceedingly powerful, and just by standing there, they gave off the feeling that they were as tall as a mountain. They had always been in this area, and the royal clan was prepared to attack the Emperor's Star Academy at any moment. It was just that the Emperor's Star Academy had broken the stalemate earlier than planned. Their preparations are truly ample. Xiao Lan glanced at the four old men standing in the air, as he stomped heavily on the ground. In an instant, spiderweb-like cracks appeared on the surface of the inn he was in. The cracks spread out rapidly, and in an instant, rumbling sounds rang out unceasingly as the inn he was in collapsed, transforming into a pile of rubble. In his eyes, killing intent could be seen. Fine, since the Emperor's Star Academy had long prepared for this battle, let's fight then. He also hoped to settle things as soon as possible. With the departure of the Azure Emperor Palace, Xiao Lan gradually lost his patience. Could it be that the Emperor's Star Academy really didn't have any secrets regarding the Azure Emperor? I want Qin Wentian alive, kill the others without mercy. Xiao Lan calmly stated. He could faintly sense that there were some secrets hidden on the body of Qin Wentian. As the sound of Xiao Lan's voice faded, the people around him stepped out. In an instant, a dazzling display of astral souls caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. The Crown Prince of Snowcloud, Xiao Lv. This was the first time he made a move. The astral souls hovering above his head were exceptionally dazzling, they were actually zither astral souls. A melody abruptly gushed forth, and in an instant, a desolate killing intent permeated the air. This melody enveloped the people around him, as though it was able to strengthen their will to fight. Wang Teng, Wu Chong, and Sikong Mingyue all entered a mysterious state of mind. However, the only thing Qin Wendian and the rest could feel was a towering killing intent. A raging wind gusted by, as reinforcements arrived from afar. These reinforcements were none other than the alliance leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, Shuelengfeng, and the alliance leader of the Azura Alliance, Duidao. They had been paying attention to Xiao Lv. Very quickly, both sides clashed against each other. Duidao has also broken through. Sensing the aura emanating from Duidao, Mustang could tell that he was at the third level of Yuanfu. Mustang stood up, and his astral souls erupted forth as he walked towards Yiwuk. Yiwuk similarly released his astral souls. Although he was arrogant, he would never underestimate his opponents. This was especially so for Mustang, who was a teacher of the Emperor's Star Academy. Although Mustang's talent couldn't be compared to his, Mustang had been at the Yuanfu realm for so many years. Not only that, Mustang's cultivation base was at the third level of Yuanfu, the same level as some of the top-tier students. The two of them instantly clashed against each other, both of them exuding a terrifying killing intent. Mustang's attacks were more experienced, while Yiwuk's attacks were more domineering. Naturally, Yiwuk was clearly at a disadvantage. Qin Wendian stood there, watching the battle between Mustang and Yiwuk. Seeing how Mustang risked his life to kill Yiwuk, he understood his teacher's intentions. He didn't move, and only stood there, watching Mustang. He didn't wish to see any mishaps befall his teacher. From afar, there were many spectators paying attention to this battle. Although they weren't the strongest, the two of them were the most famous in the royal capital. The Nine Mystical Palace, Shaolan, the Emperor's Star Academy, Qin Wendian. Currently, the Nine Mystical Palace was no longer a secret in the royal capital. Shaolan was a member of that terrifying power. And now, Shaolan had given the order to capture Qin Wendian alive. As for the others, they were to be killed without mercy. You really have the mood to be so carefree. Sikong Mingyue had yet to act. He had an intense obsession in his heart, and this obsession was none other than Qin Wendian. However, at this moment, a shadowy figure abruptly appeared behind Qin Wendian. It was as though he had always been there. Evidently, he wouldn't allow the incident of Qin Wendian's death to happen again. Sikong Mingyue's gaze froze as he stared at the shadowy figure. Could it be that he really couldn't touch Qin Wendian today? Hee hee. Sikong Mingyue laughed, as hints of mockery could be heard in his voice. What he didn't know was that at this moment, Qin Wendian was looking at him with a strange look in his eyes. It was as though he was looking at someone courting death. After which, under the watchful eyes of Sikong Mingyue, Qin Wendian's silhouette slowly floated up into the air. Yuanfu. The hearts of the spectators trembled as they witnessed this scene. Qin Wendian had officially stepped into Yuanfu. His cultivation speed is truly fast. Many in the crowd sighed. If this was the case, Qin Wendian should already have the strength to contend against Sikong Mingyue. That's good. Sikong Mingyue's astral soul erupted forth. His third astral soul shone with a faint golden light. This astral soul originated from the fourth heavenly layer, and it was a demonic beast astral soul, Sword Eagle. Ranked 316 in the War Beast Index, Sword Eagle. Focuses on offense. Qin Wendian muttered in a low voice as he stared at the demonic beast astral soul. The first and second astral souls were respectively, Seven Slaughter's astral soul and Sword astral soul, both originated from the third heavenly layer. As for the third astral soul, Sword Eagle, originated from the fourth heavenly layer. No wonder Sikong Mingyue wanted to battle so badly. Such a combination of astral souls, in the entire Chu country, was truly terrifying. Seems like you're quite knowledgeable. After today's battle, I shall wash away the humiliation I suffered in the past. Sikong Mingyue drew in a deep breath. His three astral souls seemed as though they were about to materialize. Compared to when he was at the arterial circulation realm, the amplification effect was also much stronger. A terrifying killing intent radiated out from Sikong Mingyue's body. The terrifying sharpness of his astral souls gushed towards Qin Wentian, and the crowd only saw a beam of light flashing past. At this moment, Sikong Mingyue's entire body was enveloped by a halo of slaughter, incomparably dazzling. In the blink of an eye, the beam of light bore down on Qin Wentian. His body was akin to a sword, as he slashed out. The pupils of the crowd involuntarily narrowed. Under this strike, would Qin Wentian's body be sliced into two? A demonic light flashed in Qin Wentian's eyes. A terrifying gust of wind blew against his long hair, as a blood-colored intent permeated his palms. Right now, he could easily activate the power of his bloodline. Within his body, the Yuan Fu that was connected to the demon's sovereign astral soul roared, as terrifying amounts of astral energy gushed forth. The crowd only saw Qin Wentian lifting his palms, as a palm imprint blasted out, causing the faces of many to pale. Wasn't Qin Wentian a little too arrogant? Rumble. Sikong Mingyue, who was brimming with a terrifying killing intent, slashed towards Qin Wentian's palm imprint. However, his body halted, as the gigantic palm imprint seemed to contain a boundless amount of energy, causing him to be unable to advance any further. What kind of palm was this? It was even more terrifying than a mountain. At this moment, Sikong Mingyue's countenance lost all color. He inclined his head and stared at Qin Wentian, only to see that his opponent was still as calm as before. Other than the fact that his eyes had turned a little demonic, there weren't many fluctuations to his countenance. Only now did Sikong Mingyue understand the meaning behind Qin Wentian's indifferent gaze. It was as though he was looking at the eyes of a dead man. You are truly seeking death. Qin Wentian calmly spat out. Sikong Mingyue's body abruptly trembled, as though he had sensed danger, as he retreated backwards. Only to see Qin Wentian lifting his palms once again, as a terrifying surge of demonic qi could be sensed in his palms. His palms were akin to the palms of a demonic beast, as they blasted out. Kuji imprint. Given Qin Wentian's terrifying physique, as well as the explosive astral energy in his palms, how terrifying would the might of this attack be? Desolation, desolation, a true annihilation. Sikong Mingyue's palms were directly crushed apart as the palm imprint slammed into his body. After which, the spectators only saw Sikong Mingyue's body trembling weakly in the air as he slowly descended from the skies. Sikong Mingyue, one of the duo prides of Snowcloud, a demon-level genius whose third astral soul originated from the fourth heavenly layer. Today, did he want to wash away the humiliation he had suffered? When the crowd saw the Kuji imprint crushing Sikong Mingyue to death, the impact they felt was indescribable. Chapter 196. In the air, Qin Wentian quietly floated there. It was as though what he had done was an insignificant thing that wasn't even worth mentioning. The disparity between the two of them was too great. Just like back then when they were both at the 9th level of arterial circulation, Sikong Mingyue couldn't even withstand a single strike. Now, it was the same. As for Qin Wentian, he hadn't even released his astral souls yet. Many in the crowd were speculating that the astral souls Sikong Mingyue had condensed were from the 3rd heavenly layer, 3rd heavenly layer and 4th heavenly layer respectively. What about Qin Wentian? His first 2 astral souls were condensed from the 3rd and 4th heavenly layer respectively. What about his 3rd astral soul? Yuan Fu realm. That unyielding youth is finally going to welcome his era. Someone sighed in their hearts. Stepping into Yuan Fu indicated that Qin Wentian had already started his path of cultivation. From today onwards, no one in Chu would dare to underestimate this youth. At this moment, in the airspace above the Emperor's Star Academy, a silhouette stood there. This person was none other than the headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy, Dai. He had personally witnessed the battle, and he had also seen how easily Qin Wentian slew Sikong Mingyue. Him at this moment only felt an incomparably complicated feeling in his heart. Turning back, he gazed at a maiden standing behind him. This maiden was clad in a pure and flawless feather robe, with a veil covering her face. Her long black hair fluttered in the wind, and her lithe figure was enough to cause any man to go crazy. She stood there casually, yet no one dared to have any profane thoughts towards her. Dai had long since discovered the existence of such an extraordinary maiden in the Emperor's Star Academy. She had arrived together with Qin Wentian, yet she had yet to reveal herself. After seeing her, Dai understood that the 3,000 years of waiting had finally come to an end. The mission of the generations of students had finally been accomplished. In the future, I will temporarily hand him over to you. Dai turned and spoke to the extraordinary maiden in front of him. Qing still had no expression on her face. She was as cold as ever, as though she would always be like this. Okay. Lightly nodding her head, she spoke only a single word. She was as reticent as ever, but this single word gave people a sense of security. It was as if she would definitely do what she said. Godfather. Below, Ren Qianqing's eyes were red as he looked at Dai and asked, "Do we really have to do this?" Dai slowly shifted his gaze onto Ren Qianqing below, as a gentle smile appeared in his eyes. He suddenly thought of many things in the past. He thought back to when he was young and frivolous. At that time, he obeyed the instructions of his elders and came to the Emperor's Star Academy. Back then, he had also lived a life of debauchery. Finally, he became the guardian of the Emperor's Star Academy, and knew his mission. As one of the hidden branches of the Azure faction, they had never truly appeared in the Azure Emperor Palace before. Other than members of the Azure Emperor Palace, no one else knew of their existence. The mission of this branch was to either obtain the inheritance of the Azure Emperor or protect it until that person appeared. Now, he had waited for the right moment. Qianqing, the Emperor's Star Academy has nurtured too many geniuses throughout these years, standing at the pinnacle of Chu, and finally reaching this stage. Dai smiled as he looked at Ren Qianqing. This is already the best ending we could hope for. Is this really the best ending? Ren Qianqing sighed deeply. He truly couldn't bear to part with the Emperor's Star Academy. Okay, let's watch the final battle of the students of my Emperor's Star Academy. Dai smiled as he gazed into the horizons. Over there, the battle was still as intense as ever. From the initial skirmishes on the streets, it had now escalated into a true grand battle. Even Xiaolan didn't expect this to happen. Go and deal with the person behind him. Xiaolan spoke to an old man beside him. That old man nodded his head lightly as he walked towards the direction of Qin Wentian. The shadowy figure behind Qin Wentian took a step forward. Both of them moved at the same time, moving to the side. If they were to engage in a battle here, it was inevitable that the shockwaves would implicate the people on their side. This was something they didn't want to see. With that, there was no one left beside Qin Wentian. Xiao Lu's silhouette flickered as he dashed towards the direction of Qin Wentian. However, the leader of the Heavenly Demon Alliance, Xerox, blocked his path. The two of them clashed madly, but Xerox was suppressed by Xiao Lu, who was at the same cultivation level as him. Qin Wentian still didn't make a move. He had been observing the battle between Mustang and Yuwak. Currently, Mustang had the upper hand, and was unleashing a frenzied barrage of attacks against Yuwak. Yuwak retreated step by step, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. Mustang wanted to fight to the death with him, and each of his attacks were extremely ruthless, disregarding his own safety in order to kill Yuwak. At this moment, a cold glint of light flashed in Yuwak's eyes as his killing intent gushed forth. Mustang's palm strike was even more terrifying than a sharp sword, blasting towards the location of Yuwak's heart. At this moment, Yuwak didn't dodge, he allowed Mustang's attack to land on his body. Cracking sounds rang out as Yuwak's robes were shredded into pieces. The palm imprint directly slammed into the location of his heart, but the terrifying force of the palm strike was unable to penetrate into his body. This was because Yuwak was wearing a divine armor that the Yi clan had paid a hefty price to forge for him. This was a third-ranked divine armor that was able to greatly weaken the power of attacks. Die! Yuwak roared in rage, as he slashed out with his sword, aiming for Mustang's head. However, how experienced was Mustang? At the instant he blasted out his attack, he waved his palms, causing a raging gale to kick up as a row of palm imprints appeared in front of him. Yuwak's sword strike pierced right into the palm imprints, yet it only managed to penetrate into Mustang's body, forcing him to retreat backwards. But at the same time, Yi Ran, who was standing at the side, was already prepared. At the instant Mustang was forced back, Yi Ran had already made his preparations. Mustang's countenance turned ashen, as he hurriedly slashed out with his palms. A beam of cold light flashed past, but the raging flames still blasted into his body, causing him to groan in agony. Die! Yuwak stabbed out with a finger, as a five-colored sword light shot out, wanting to lacerate Mustang's head. However, at this moment, a terrifying palm imprint blasted out from behind Mustang. The Kuji imprint gushed forth with a frenzied speed, engulfing the sword light as it lunged towards Yuwak, causing Yuwak's countenance to sink as he retreated backwards. Qin Wentian. Yuwak's eyes flashed with a cold light when he saw that the person who attacked was Qin Wentian. How tenacious! Not far away, Xiaolan smiled as he stared at Qin Wentian. After which, he stepped out, like a gentle breeze, moving towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian abruptly felt a sense of danger. He glanced at Xiaolan, and abruptly, he felt a bolt of lightning blasting into his mind, causing Qin Wentian to close his eyes. Careful! Mustang shouted. Qin Wentian similarly felt the sense of danger. Gathering his strength, the blood-colored inscriptions around him surged as demonic qi gushed forth from him. His palms blasted out in a frenzy, exuding an indomitable aura. Xiaolan's attack arrived as well, akin to a million bolts of lightning. Qin Wentian groaned in agony as he felt a destructive force gushing into his body, gushing towards his sea of consciousness. Qin Wentian retreated explosively. When he opened his eyes again, he saw Xiaolan calmly looking at him. His countenance was filled with coldness, as though he was unexcelled in the world. Xiaolan, a genius from the Nine Mystical Palace with a cultivation base at the third level of Yuanfu, was able to easily suppress Shuelongfeng, who was at the third level of Yuanfu from the Emperor's Star Academy. From this, one could see how tyrannical his combat prowess was. Ordinary cultivators at the third level of Yuanfu wouldn't be able to compare to him. His hasty actions naturally caused Qin Wentian to be completely suppressed, and he only suffered light injuries. I thought that after you fled, you would never appear again. Who would have thought that you would return by yourself? Do you really think that I wouldn't dare to kill you? Xiaolan coldly spoke, his robes fluttering in the wind. Many experts gathered around Qin Wentian, as well as experts from the Nine Mystical Palace. You want to kill him? At this moment, a voice drifted over. The crowd inclined their heads, only to see a few silhouettes walking over from the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy. The person in the lead was none other than the headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy, Dai. Dai's gaze shifted downwards, locking gazes with Xiaolan as he indifferently stated, "When will you be able to kill him?" Xiaolan furrowed his brows, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. There was actually someone in the Emperor's Star Academy who dared to speak to him in such a manner. As long as I'm willing, I can kill him any time. Based on his strength, how can he resist? Xiaolan's gaze sharpened as he arrogantly stated. Are you saying that with your cultivation base at the third level of Yuanfu, you want him, who's only at the first level of Yuanfu, to fight you one-on-one? The people from the Emperor's Star Academy won't interfere? Dai coldly stated. Even if you want to interfere, if I want to kill him, do you think the Emperor's Star Academy can stop me? Xiaolan stared at Dai, as arrogant as ever. In Chu, no matter what he, Xiaolan, wanted to do, would there be anyone who could stop him? He had already planned to make the Emperor's Star Academy submit, let alone a mere Qin Wentian. Is that so? Dai's countenance was as calm as ever. Nobody knew what he was thinking, and in fact, there were only a few who recognized him. Then let me tell you right now. If you dare to take another step forward, Xiaolan will no longer exist in the Nine Mystical Palace. Dai calmly stated. As the sound of his voice faded, the entire space abruptly turned silent. Countless people inclined their heads, staring at Dai before shifting their gazes onto Xiaolan. Dai had said that as long as Xiaolan took another step forward, he would die. Xiaolan also stared at Dai. Since Dai knew his identity, why did he still dare to speak such arrogant words? Threats. He, Xiaolan, was actually being threatened in this tiny Chu country. If he took a step forward, would he? What if his opponent was a heavenly dipper sovereign? As the sound of Dai's voice faded, the arrogance in Xiaolan's heart wavered. After all, this place wasn't the Nine Mystical Palace. This was the Chu country, outside of the Emperor's Star Academy. If he died, even if the Nine Mystical Palace destroyed the Emperor's Star Academy, so what? Weren't you very arrogant? Why aren't you saying anything? Dai calmly continued. At this moment, the battles had all ceased. Everyone was seriously scrutinizing Dai, a Dai that no one had ever seen before. Maybe, Luo Qianqiu had seen him before in the Heavenly Star Pavilion. Not far behind Dai, a veiled maiden casually stood in the air, resembling a celestial maiden. This caused the crowd to speculate, who was she? Chapter 197. Silence. At this moment, the entire space was deathly silent. Dai simply stood there, staring disdainfully at Xiaolan. Xiaolan similarly stared at Dai, yet he didn't dare to take a single step forward. An old man walked out, but he didn't walk towards Dai. Instead, he walked towards Qin Wentian. At this moment, the aura exuding from him caused the hearts of the spectators to tremble. The aura exuded by this old man was clearly at the upper third level of Yuanfu. Qin Wentian stared at the old man walking towards him, yet he didn't move a single step. Today, when Fan Lu invited him over to watch the show, he didn't expect that this would be a battle between the Emperor's Star Academy and the royal clan. Naturally, the royal clan was backed by Xiaolan and the Nine Mystical Palace. Since Teacher Mustang allowed him to come out, he believed in the Emperor's Star Academy. Hence, he merely stood there calmly. The silhouette of the old man whistled through the air towards Qin Wentian, as a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from him. However, at the same time, he was wary of Dai, who was standing in the air. Dai's palms trembled, and in an instant, the crowd saw a gigantic palm descending from the skies, smashing downwards at a speed so fast that the eyes of the spectators couldn't even follow it. The old man abruptly inclined his head, as a powerful tempest erupted forth. However, that terrifying palm directly slammed into his body. That palm abruptly clenched into a fist, and instantly, the body of the old man was caught in the grasp of the golden palm, unable to escape. The old man struggled madly, as an expression of terror could be seen in his eyes. At this moment, he was no longer a fearsome expert, but a pitiful old man, trapped in the grasp of that golden palm, waiting to be slaughtered. In the air, Dai's palm also stretched out, as though he was in the exact same posture as the golden palm below. Reckless fool. Dai faintly spoke, as he abruptly clenched his fist. The golden palm similarly tightened, and a cracking sound rang out as the silhouette of the old man vanished from sight. The golden palm opened up, and only drops of fresh blood could be seen within it. It had been directly crushed into pieces, drifting with the wind. A powerful Yuanfu cultivator, in front of Dai, was like an ant, easily slaughtered. This had a huge impact on everyone. Was this the legendary Heavenly Dipper realm expert? His strength was too shocking. How powerful! Qin Wentian's heart trembled as well. Was that gigantic palm made of golden constellations and astral nova? Even in his wildest dreams, Qin Wentian would have never imagined that the old man in slumber atop the staircase of the Heavenly Star Pavilion, whose entire body was covered in dust, would actually be so powerful. Not only that, back then when he faced Yu Hanshan, he was extremely low profile. From Qin Wentian's point of view, it wasn't that he didn't have the strength. It was just that he had been restraining himself. As for why he had been restraining himself, Qin Wentian didn't know. He definitely wouldn't think that it was because of him. Xiaolan's heart also felt an intense impact. To think that there was actually such a powerful expert in the Emperor's Star Academy of Chu. Qin Wendian stared at Dai, forcing himself to remain calm as he continued, "Do you really have no qualms about dealing with people from the 9 mystical palace like this? One more word and you'll die." Dai stared at Xiao Lan as he spat out another sentence, causing Xiao Lan's countenance to stiffen as his countenance contorted. Earlier, Dai forbade him from taking a single step forward. And now, Dai forbade him from speaking again. If not, he would die. Xiao Lan had never suffered such humiliation before. However, at this moment, he could only endure it. The hands of the 9 mystical palace have stretched too far. Do you really think that the Emperor's Star Academy can be bullied as you wish? Dai's palms trembled as his terrifying astral nova transformed into a golden bolt of lightning, shooting towards another old man. This old man was also one of the strongest experts here. That old man's countenance drastically changed as he frenziedly circulated his energy. However, when the astral nova slammed into him, he had no way to resist at all. His body dissipated into nothingness, vanishing from the face of the heavens and earth. However, Dai did not stop there. The golden lightning continued to dance in the void, and with a few terrifying tremors, another 2 terrifying figures fell. Silence filled the air, not a single person dared to make a single move. This was especially so for those from the Royal Academy. They didn't expect that the situation today would be like this. As long as Dai willed it, he could kill all of them. That golden palm floated in the air, they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Xiao Lan's heart was filled with rage, yet he still kept his mouth shut, not daring to utter a single word. Bzzz. The golden palm whistled through the air, grabbing hold of Xiao Lan's body. In that instant, Xiao Lan's heart pounded violently as an expression of terror appeared on his face. He had personally witnessed Dai killing without batting an eyelid, he was truly afraid. The hearts of everyone present tensed up. That golden palm lifted Xiao Lan up in the air, yet Dai's countenance didn't change in the slightest. He spoke to Xiao Lan, "If you leave the 9 mystical palace, you won't even know how you died. Yet you still dare to flaunt your arrogance here? If you truly have the ability, you shouldn't be flaunting it in the Chu country. Today, I will temporarily spare your life. However, if you dare to do anything that infuriates me again in the future, I can guarantee that unless you never appear in the 9 continents again, you will never be able to eat or sleep in peace." As the sound of Dai's voice faded, the golden palm abruptly smashed out, instantly flinging Xiao Lan through the air. "Scram from Chu." A cold voice rang out in Xiao Lan's mind. His body flipped several times in the air before he stabilized himself. Right now, Xiao Lan's countenance was ashen. The humiliation he felt was so great that he wanted to go crazy. But right now, he could only endure it. Emperor's Star Academy. Xiao Lan's eyes flickered with the flames of hatred. In the end, he didn't dare to turn his head back. Bringing along with him boundless humiliation, he departed. Dai's gaze then shifted onto the others. Those from the royal clan as well as those from the Royal Academy. At this moment, all of them were trembling with fear in their hearts. As long as Dai willed it, all of them would die. "All of you, scram." Dai calmly spoke, causing those from the royal clan to feel as though they had just been pardoned. They transformed into wisps of smoke and disappeared without a trace in the blink of an eye. In the end, I still decided to spare them. Mustang clenched his fists as he sighed. Inclining his head, he stared at Dai in the air as he asked, "Headmaster, why didn't you kill them?" In Mustang's tone, traces of anger could be heard. "I hope that all of you will be able to live on peacefully." Dai glanced at Mustang, his words causing Mustang's countenance to stiffen. After which, he drew in a deep breath and bowed to Dai. "Mustang knows his mistake. Don't worry, there's always been an old monster in the royal clan. Let's return to the academy." Dai faintly spoke. The others in Chu might not be clear, but he had lived for so many years, and had stayed in the royal capital for so many years. Although only a few people knew of him, with regards to every single blade of grass and every tree in the royal capital, no one was clearer than Dai. Who were the strongest in the royal capital? Dai was clearer than anyone else. He had always known that there was an old monster in the royal clan who had been in closed-door seclusion for many years. If he really went on a killing spree, nothing would happen to him. But what about those from the Emperor's Star Academy? Those from the Emperor's Star Academy gradually returned. The weaker students also gathered together as they stared at the legendary figure in the air. This was their headmaster. With a wave of his hand, he could slaughter the entire world. How imposing was that? Dai gazed at the crowd below, as a gentle smile appeared on his face. After watching over the academy for so many years, his feelings towards it were no weaker than anyone else's. However, today, he had no choice but to make a decision. The Emperor's Star Academy has a history of over 3,000 years, and has experienced too many trials and tribulations. However, in these 3,000 years, the Emperor's Star Academy has always stood at the peak of the Chu country. I'm extremely proud of our achievements. Dai calmly spoke. Silence filled the air, as everyone quietly listened to his words. However, today, I have no choice but to make an important decision. From today onwards, the Emperor's Star Academy will be disbanded. What? Why? As the sound of Dai's voice faded, the countenances of the crowd changed. Bewilderment, and bewilderment could be seen on their faces. Disbanding? Why? Only to see Dai waving his hands as the commotion gradually died down. Dai continued, I know that all of you are reluctant to part with the Emperor's Star Academy. However, given the current situation, the Emperor's Star Academy is no longer suitable to exist in Chu. Disbanding the Emperor's Star Academy is a decision I've made after careful consideration. However, don't be disheartened. All of you have outstanding talent, which is why you are able to stand here today. The outside world is vast, and there are countless powers stronger than the Emperor's Star Academy. Qin Wentian calmly listened to Dai's words, an indescribable feeling in his heart. Beside him, Mustang, Luo Huan and Fan Lu were all present. Teacher, did you already know about this? Qin Wentian murmured as he sighed. Headmaster Dai did this in order to protect the students. If this continued, the unlucky ones would be the students. They would bleed to death, and in addition, the headmaster had no choice but to kill those from the 9 mystical palace to intimidate the Emperor's Star Academy. Mustang sighed. Dai had killed several experts from the 9 mystical palace. There was no need for Xiaolan to act. The 9 mystical palace had too many methods to deal with the students of the Emperor's Star Academy. As for the reason why Dai spared Xiaolan, it was because he knew that once Xiaolan died, even if the Emperor's Star Academy was disbanded, the Xiao faction of the 9 mystical palace would still be able to find those who were disbanded. As long as Xiaolan didn't die, the 9 mystical palace wouldn't dare to be too ruthless. Dai's actions were obviously done after careful consideration. In fact, he had other considerations as well. Because of the secret of the Azure Emperor, Dai knew that there were many pairs of eyes staring at the Emperor's Star Academy. Under such circumstances, disbanding the Emperor's Star Academy was a helpless move. Naturally, the reason why Dai stood out today and made such a decision was all because of Qin Wentian. He had already ended the mission of the Emperor's Star Academy. All of you will have a better future. Children, take care of yourselves. Dai laughed. After which, he slowly walked towards the back mountain of the Emperor's Star Academy, leaving behind the students of the Emperor's Star Academy who were still in a daze. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath as he stared at the departing figure of Dai. His eyes flashed with sharpness as he stated, I'm not willing to let the Emperor's Star Academy disappear just like that. Outside the royal capital of Chu, Xiaolan was riding on a demonic beast. He was truly preparing to leave. He no longer had the face to remain in this place of humiliation. In the heart of Xiaolan, there was also an intense unwillingness. Beside him, there were several experts protecting him. they didn't dare to speak for fear of angering Xiaolan. Who? At this moment, the countenance of one of the guards froze. However, as the sound of his voice faded, a terrifying silhouette flickered past, and with a light sound, the guard's head instantly exploded. In an instant, the other guards frenziedly unleashed their auras. However, as the sounds of explosions rang out unceasingly, the guards fell one after another. Xiaolan's body trembled slightly. Staring at the silhouette before him, his countenance turned ashen. What do you want to do? Kill you. That person calmly replied. Xiaolan's eyes flickered with despair as he instantly turned and fled. He only had a single thought in his mind, and that was to flee. Even if he knew that he was in the hands of his opponent, there was no way for him to escape. Indeed, a gigantic palm slammed over. Xiaolan's eyes were filled with despair and terror as his body was crushed into pieces. His head fell from the air. Before Xiaolan died, there was only a single thought in his mind. No one would know who killed him. Xiaolan, he hated him. Chapter 198. The news of the disbandment of the Emperor's Star Academy quickly spread throughout the royal capital, causing a huge wave of commotion. The academy that stood at the peak of Chu for 3,000 years was actually disbanded. This caused many to feel a sense of desolation, as they silently sighed for the Emperor's Star Academy. Everyone also understood that the disbandment of the Emperor's Star Academy was something they had no choice but to do. With the royal clan suppressing them, and with the backing of the Nine Mystical Palace, the headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy, Dai's domineering attitude, killing the experts of the Nine Mystical Palace would definitely infuriate them. Hence, the Emperor's Star Academy had no choice but to disband. At this moment, within the Emperor's Star Academy, countless people bid their farewells to each other, their expressions filled with sorrow. Qin Wentian stood on top of a pavilion, gazing at the silhouettes in the distance as he felt an indescribable feeling in his heart. Why? Are you feeling sad? Luo Huan walked to Qin Wentian's side, her beautiful eyes gazing into the distance as a faint smile hung on her lips. However, there was a hint of helplessness hidden within. Sister Luo Huan, what are your plans? Qin Wentian turned his head to look at her beautiful face as he squeezed out a smile. Let's go, I plan to go to the Qin continent. I heard that the Nine Mystical Palace is located there, I really want to see how powerful they are. Luo Huan smiled. What about you? Where do you plan to go? Do you want to come with me? No thanks, I still have some unfinished business. Qin Wentian replied in a low voice. Luo Huan contemplated Qin Wentian, only to see that Qin Wentian's eyes were clear and deep. She couldn't tell what he was thinking. This fellow had truly grown up. Luo Huan walked forward, stretching out her hands to embrace Qin Wentian, causing Qin Wentian to be stunned. Her beautiful eyes were inches away from his, and her ample bosom pressed against his chest, causing Qin Wentian's face to heat up. Little fellow, you even know how to be shy. Luo Huan giggled, as she planted a kiss on Qin Wentian's forehead. Sister, don't you know how charming you are? Qin Wentian bitterly smiled. Luo Huan giggled. After which, she separated herself from Qin Wentian and said, Little fellow, this elder sister has watched you grow up. In the future, you must definitely become a man of indomitable spirit. Definitely. Qin Wentian heavily nodded his head. The situation of the Emperor's Star Academy being disbanded was something he never wanted to see ever again. Enough, the two of you can stop being so intimate. Old Ren is waiting for you, Wentian. Mustang walked to the back of the two as he smiled. Teacher, I'm trying to build a good relationship with junior brother Qin. If not, in the future, this fellow might not even acknowledge me as his senior sister. Luo Huan laughed. You're full of wicked ideas. Mustang glared at Luo Huan. However, he was extremely happy in his heart. After Mountain's death, his closest disciples, Qin Wentian and Luo Huan, were undoubtedly two of them. There was also Yu Fei and Fan Luo. He hoped that all of them would be fine. However, Yi Wukei, Wu Chong, Wang Teng and the rest were still alive. Mustang was extremely unwilling in his heart. He had yet to avenge Big Mountain. Qin Wentian followed Ren Qianqing to the temporary residence in the mountain and met with Dai. Dai had a smile on his face as he indicated to Qin Wentian, "Take a seat." Qin Wentian nodded his head as he sat opposite Dai. He cast a glance at Ren Qianqing before Ren Qianqing departed. On this mountain peak that overlooked the entire Emperor Star Academy, only Dai and Qin Wentian remained. There are many innate techniques and cultivation arts in the Heavenly Star Pavilion. I've already instructed the teachers of the academy to copy them down and distribute them to the disciples. Here are a few innate techniques, the original versions, for you to cultivate in the future. As for the cultivation arts, I won't be giving them to you. You can go and find one that suits you. Dai retrieved a few innate techniques and passed them to Qin Wentian. His gaze when he looked at Qin Wentian was filled with kindness. "Thank you, headmaster." Qin Wentian didn't stand on ceremony and accepted them. Indeed, he hadn't had the time to go to the 6th level of the Heavenly Star Pavilion to cultivate a high-grade Earth-ranked innate technique. "How many yuan fu do you have now?" Dai stared at Qin Wentian, as a hint of hope flashed in his eyes. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened as a strange light flashed in his eyes. So it turned out that Dai already knew about it. 3 yuan fu. Qin Wentian replied. Momentarily, Dai drew in a deep breath as he heavily patted Qin Wentian on his shoulders. "Good, good. The Azure Emperor finally has a successor. Senior, have you always been guarding the Emperor Star Academy?" Qin Wentian curiously asked. Dai nodded his head, as he turned to Qin Wentian, "You should already know about the Azure Emperor Palace. Back then after the Azure Emperor died, the Azure Emperor Palace was invaded by external powers, wanting to obtain everything belonging to the Azure Emperor. The Azure faction had no choice but to endure, and at the same time, they secretly sent out a group of infants. Now that a few thousand years have passed, the invading external powers have already become the representatives of the Azure Emperor Palace, while the Azure faction was completely suppressed. But luckily, our ancestor had foresight. After those infants grew up, they continued to multiply, becoming one of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace. Before this, no one knew of their existence until a few years ago. The reason for this was because of the conflict between the Emperor's Star Academy and the 9 Mystical Palace caused by Luo Tianya. Senior, are you saying that the one who acted back then was one of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace? Qin Wentian was somewhat taken aback. At that time, I was still guarding the Heavenly Star Pavilion. As long as the inheritance of the Azure Emperor hasn't been obtained by others, I didn't want to be exposed. But in the end, the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace also found out about it. Luckily, they didn't know too much. Dai laughed. Actually, all these years, the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor Palace have always had people cultivating in the Emperor Star Academy, just like me. It's just that no one knew about it. However, none of them managed to pass the test, and in the end, the inheritance landed in your hands. An expression of bewilderment appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Only now did he understand some of the hidden details. Dai retrieved a medallion with the word Azure engraved on it. He then passed it to Qin Wentian. Although this medallion is under my control, I don't have the authority to use it. But now, I finally have a successor. As Dai spoke, he grabbed hold of Qin Wentian's hand and sliced it with his finger. Instantly, a drop of fresh blood dripped from Qin Wentian's fingertip. Dai placed the medallion on the ground, and as the drop of blood dripped onto the medallion, Qin Wentian discovered, to his astonishment, that in the airspace above the medallion, a map could be seen. From now onwards, this medallion is yours. These maps indicate the location of the hidden branches of the Azure Emperor. I hope that you will be able to bring them back to the Azure Emperor Palace, and become the successor of the Azure Emperor Palace. You will no longer have to fear the covetous eyes of the other powers in the 9 continents. Dai solemnly passed the medallion to Qin Wendian, causing great waves to rise in Qin Wendian's heart. How strong is this hidden faction? Qin Wendian asked. Dai laughed, I'm not too sure, but at the very least, it should be much stronger than the Shao faction of the Nine Mystical Palace. But you have to remember, the hidden faction of the Azure Emperor has to keep a low profile. Back then, there were too many transcendent powers that participated in the assassination of the Azure Emperor, and the majority of them were transcendent powers in the 9 continents. They wouldn't be willing to see the Azure Emperor Palace rise up again. Qin Wendian solemnly noted this down. And one more thing, you are not a direct descendant of the Azure Emperor. If you want to completely control this faction, you still have a long way to go. Dai patted Qin Wendian on his shoulder, causing Qin Wendian to be slightly taken aback. That's right, with his current strength, it wouldn't be easy for him to make those Heavenly Dipper sovereigns listen to his commands. But you can rest assured that even if you can't control them, at the very least, they won't act against you. They will only watch you grow until they approve of you. I will do my best. Qin Wendian calmed his fluctuating heart as a carefree smile appeared on his face. No one would be able to remain calm in the face of such a situation. The hidden faction of the Azure Emperor Palace would be under his control. Naturally, for this, he would have to shoulder the responsibility of reviving the Azure Emperor Palace. I heard that you and that lass from the Mo clan are in love with each other. This lass has an extraordinary talent in the area of medicinal pills and spiritual herbs, it's just that she has yet to be excavated in Chu. Before I leave, do you want me to be your matchmaker? Dai laughed, causing an expression of awkwardness to appear on Qin Wendian's face. It's still too early. Qin Wendian smiled, his voice trembling. Ha, you're right. In that case, I won't interfere in the matters of you youngsters. Dai laughed, glancing at a beautiful silhouette not far away from him. She simply stood there, as though she didn't exist at all. This caused Dai to not remind Qin Wendian to take care of himself. He knew that Fairy Qingmei had already made her preparations. Qin Wendian also felt that something was strange. He naturally discovered that the beautiful maiden had appeared beside him. However, she didn't say a single word to him, causing him to be somewhat speechless. The disbandment of the Emperor Star Academy caused the royal clan of Chu to be secretly delighted. Although they were shocked by Dai, the Emperor Star Academy no longer existed from now on. The royal clan no longer had a power that had been suppressing them for 3,000 years. Not only that, in recent days, because of Qin Wendian, the Emperor Star Academy had already become enemies with the royal clan. The students of the Emperor Star Academy gradually departed, and the royal clan didn't interfere. They were happy to see such a situation unfold. But also today, outside the Yi clan, a power of the royal clan, there was a life and death letter pasted on the door, challenging Yi Wu-Kei of the Yi clan. The location of the Junlin banquet was the Chu gazing platform, and the person who signed it was none other than Qin Wendian. This news quickly spread throughout the royal capital. Dai's appearance caused him to attract too much attention. It was as though many people had forgotten that the top ranker of the Junlin banquet had already stepped into Yuanfu. Not only that, he had also killed Sikong Mingyue in an extremely tyrannical manner. And now, the most dazzling figure of the Junlin banquet had jumped levels to challenge Yi Wuk, who had already broken through to the second level of Yuanfu. Such news undoubtedly caused people to be filled with excitement. Exactly how strong was Qin Wendian after he stepped into Yuanfu? The words life and death battle caused everyone in the royal capital to feel the intense self-confidence radiating from Qin Wendian. However, this wasn't the end. Following that, another piece of news circulated out. The two geniuses of the Royal Academy, Wang Teng and Wu Chong, had both received a life and death battle letter, and the challenger was none other than Qin Wendian. Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng were all at the second level of Yuanfu. Back then, they had accompanied Xiao Lan to the Emperor Star Academy to challenge cultivators at the 5th level of Yuanfu. The three of them had all defeated their opponents. Back then, their opponents were Chiu Mo, the leader of the Azura Alliance, Dui Dao, and the leader of the Green Cloud Alliance, Ling Hua. After the Junlin banquet, the Chu Emperor District once again attracted the attention of the royal capital. Could that unyielding youth still be as dazzling as he was during the Junlin banquet? Could he continue to trample over those geniuses? Chapter 199. Today, the Chu Emperor District was open to the citizens of the royal capital. Naturally, they knew why the Chu Emperor District was open to the public. Qin Wentian issued a life and death challenge to 3 second-level Yuanfu cultivators. How could Yi Wuke and the rest reject it? If Yi Wuke cowered, from now onwards, all the glory he had would fade away. He was Yi Wuke, the most dazzling member of the younger generation of the Yi clan, the future hope of the Yi clan. Naturally, he would accept the challenge. Qin Wentian arrived very early, even earlier than those from the Yi clan. He sat on one of the battle platforms with his eyes closed, appearing very quiet. It was as though he didn't know that his decision had attracted the attention of so many people. Mustang, Luo Huan, and Fan Lu were all here. How could they miss such a battle? Even Chu Tianjiao had arrived. He sat on the azure jadeite dragon seat, staring at the silhouette of Yi Wuke. He wanted to see how Qin Wentian would defeat Yi Wuke, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng. Bai Qingsong and Autumn Snow had also arrived. Autumn Snow stared at Qin Wentian, an indescribable feeling in her heart. If she hadn't experienced it herself, she would never have imagined that today, Qin Wentian would challenge Yi Wuke. Would she be able to win? She didn't know why, but at this moment, in Autumn Snow's heart, she actually believed that Qin Wentian would be able to defeat Yi Wuke. How much effort did the Emperor's Star Academy put in to protect him? Now that he issued a life and death challenge, if he died, wouldn't that be a joke? Below the platform, Chiu Mo's countenance was cold as he stared at Qin Wentian. Back then, he had already had conflicts with Qin Wentian, but now that he saw Qin Wentian growing stronger, he couldn't help but feel extremely bitter in his heart. Luo Huan smiled, as she stared at Chiu Mo. That's right, Chiu Mo, you mocked junior brother Qin back then. At that time, you were a Yuanfu cultivator, while junior brother Qin was still at the arterial circulation realm. Now, I'm afraid that junior brother Qin could kill you with a single palm strike. Chiu Mo's countenance stiffened as his countenance turned ashen. He was still at the first level of Yuanfu, yet Qin Wentian had killed Sikong Mingyue with a single palm strike. He could only snort coldly as his heart was filled with jealousy. At this moment, a few figures appeared in the sky. They were none other than Yi Wuke, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng. Yi Wuke was clad in white, looking as handsome as ever. Wu Chong exuded a violent demonic aura, while Wang Teng exuded a tyrannical aura. The three of them stood in the air, staring disdainfully at Qin Wentian. They were all geniuses at the second level of Yuanfu, yet now, they were being challenged by Qin Wentian, who was only at the first level of Yuanfu. This wasn't something that could bring them any face. Wang Teng stared at Qin Wentian and said coldly, "Are you sure that today is a life and death duel? If you die, no one will pursue the matter." Wang Teng was naturally referring to Dai. If Qin Wentian died and Dai wanted revenge, Hu and Chu would be able to stop him. If he dies, no one will pursue the matter. But if any of you dares to interfere in this battle, you will have to bear the consequences. Below the platform, Ren Qianqing coldly stared at the three of them as he spoke. Since Qin Wentian had issued a life and death letter, he had absolute trust in him. "Fine, there are 3 of us here. How do you want to die?" Wang Teng's tone was as tyrannical as ever. Qin Wentian was too arrogant. Their cultivation bases at the second level of Yuanfu weren't just for show. Qin Wentian opened his eyes and stood up. His countenance was extremely calm, not even the slightest ripple could be seen in his eyes. He inclined his head slightly, staring at the 3 silhouettes in the air. It was as though he didn't even place them in his eyes. Such a cold and indifferent attitude caused Wang Teng to unleash an aura of sharpness as he lunged towards Qin Wentian. Within Qin Wentian's body, the yuan energy in his yuan fu started to seethe. His blood vessels started to churn as the blood-colored inscriptions on Qin Wentian's body became more active. Qin Wentian's demeanor was undergoing a transformation. His ink-black hair fluttered in the wind as his eyes turned demonic. His physique grew even more imposing, and a blood-colored light could be seen flickering in his demonic eyes. "All of you, come at me together." Qin Wentian's voice was as calm as ever, yet when it entered the ears of the spectators, it was akin to a thunderclap, causing them to widen their eyes in shock. Did they hear it wrongly? Yi Wuk, Wang Teng, Wu Chong, any one of them was an elite at the second level of Yuan Fu. And now, Qin Wentian wanted all of them to come at him together. This caused those who had confidence in Qin Wentian to feel that Qin Wentian was a little too arrogant. This was simply unreasonable arrogance. Truly not knowing the immensity of the heavens and earth. Chiu Mo's countenance turned cold. Qin Wentian, was he courting death? Mustang stared at Qin Wentian's silhouette, and for some unknown reason, his eyes reddened. Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng were the main culprits behind Mountain's death. Qin Wentian didn't choose to challenge them one by one, because if he defeated or killed one of them, the other two would definitely not accept his challenge. As for why Qin Wentian wanted all three of them to come at him together, Mustang actually had absolute confidence in Qin Wentian. Since Qin Wentian had spoken, he would definitely be able to do it. This was the impression that Qin Wentian had always given him. Back then during the examination in the Sky Harmony City, and it was the same during the Jun Lin banquet. When he wanted to be number one, there was nothing that could obstruct his footsteps. Today, it was the same as well. Luo Huan and Fan Lu also felt the same way. Absolute trust. Unknowingly, that young man had already caused his friends to have this sort of blind trust in him. This was an unreasonable trust, yet it was something they truly felt in their hearts. Yi Wuk, Wang Teng, and Wu Chong were all stunned. Even Yi Wuk, who had always been indifferent, couldn't help but laugh at this moment. He was laughing at Qin Wentian for not knowing what to do. "Your stupidity will cost you your life," Yi Wuk mocked. After which, he turned to the other two, "Since he wants to die so badly, let's grant him his wish." The three of them unleashed their 9 astral souls at the same time. The resplendent astral energy caused the spectators to be dazzled. "Die!" Yi Wuke's low voice rang out, as a tyrannical killing intent gushed forth from him. The three of them simultaneously reversed their positions, and in an instant, a formless storm of killing intent gushed towards Qin Wentian. Yi Wuk's attack was like a sword, incomparably resplendent, penetrating through everything. Wu Chang's attack was like a demonic beast, incomparably tyrannical. His entire person was like a demonic beast, suppressing all his opponents. Wang Teng's attack was like a war chariot of slaughter, pulverizing all those who obstructed him. The storm of killing intent converged together, with the destination being Qin Wentian. The hearts of the spectators pounded madly, it was as though they could see Qin Wentian being crushed into pieces by this terrifying storm of killing intent. That storm of killing intent was howling with rage. Boom! Qin Wentian stepped onto the platform, as a towering aura erupted forth from him. In an instant, demonic qi and blood-colored light enveloped him, as though he was clad in a halo of light. His long, jet-black hair was as straight as a sword. Qin Wentian inclined his head, as a fearsome blood-colored demonic light erupted forth from his eyes, causing the three of them to feel a sense of pressure. However, their killing intent didn't stop, they wanted Qin Wentian to die. Roar! A terrifying howl of rage erupted from Qin Wentian's mouth, as though he wanted to tear apart the heavens and earth. Both his palms blasted out, and the spectators only felt that at this moment, Qin Wentian was akin to an ancient demon. His palms gave off a feeling of invincibility. The last stance of the Thousand Hands imprint, the Great Thousand Hands imprint, exploded forth, causing the entire heavens and earth to be filled with countless gigantic palm imprints. And at the same time, the attacks of the three of them slammed into each other. The terrifying storm of killing intent transformed into an intense astral wind that blasted onto the faces of the spectators, causing them to feel a burning sensation on their faces. At the same time, explosions rang out in the space where they clashed. Qin Wentian's palms propped up the heavens and earth as he stomped on the ground once more. His body actually carried the three of them as he soared up into the skies. Die! A crazed howl of rage rang out, as boundless sword light gushed forth from Qin Wentian's mouth. At the same time, both his palms trembled as another towering palm imprint blasted out. Each and every palm imprint contained a terrifying amount of astral energy. The scene of Qin Wentian carrying the three of them as he soared up into the skies caused an intense visual impact to the spectators. They had an illusion that Qin Wentian was the one with the highest cultivation base. The feeling he gave off was that he was filled with boundless energy. Wang Teng, die! The rolling sound waves blasted into the eardrums of the spectators. They only saw Qin Wentian raising his palms towards the skies. The attack he executed was actually only a high-grade human tier innate technique, the dragon subduing fist, dragon seizing palm. However, when he executed the dragon seizing palm, it was as though he was a true king trying to capture a demonic dragon. That blood-colored palm transformed into a terrifying dragon claw as it grabbed towards Wang Teng. The countenances of Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng were incredibly ugly to behold. They roared in rage as their yuanfu started to churn. The astral energy from their astral palms gushed out explosively as all sorts of terrifying innate techniques blasted out towards Qin Wentian. Only to see Qin Wentian slamming out with his left hand as a terrifying blood-colored mountain peak whistled through the air, smashing towards Yi Wuk and Wu Chong. The falling mountain palms in his hands were getting more and more perfect. Especially after he condensed the astral energy from his heavenly hammer into the form of a mountain, it was as though a real mountain peak was blasting out from his palms. Yi Wuk and Wu Chang's attacks frenziedly broke through the mountain peak's defense, while on the other end, Qin Wentian's palms grabbed towards Wang Teng. Get lost! Wang Teng howled in rage. The shadows of his astral souls descended as his palms blasted out attacks akin to the galloping of 10,000 horses. However, Qin Wentian's palms actually shone with a blood-colored sword light, shattering everything in their path. The dragon-seizing palms shook the air as Wang Teng retreated. However, Qin Wentian's palms were akin to the arms of demons. Abruptly, terrifying claws extended out, grabbing onto Wang Teng's head. No! Wang Teng's countenance drastically changed. When he looked at Qin Wentian again, it was as though he was looking at the king of demons, the sovereign of the world. Die! A crisp sound rang out as the dragon-seizing palms crushed Wang Teng's head. The bloody scene was so shocking that it caused the hearts of countless spectators to go into a daze. Was this really an attack that a cultivator at the first level of Yuanfu could unleash? At this moment, how many cultivators at the second level of Yuanfu felt their hearts trembling? If they were in Wang Teng's position, this claw attack would also be able to reap their lives. Too powerful. When they looked at Qin Wentian's silhouette again, it no longer felt like they were looking at a young man. The young man of the past had already possessed the qualifications to look down on all the geniuses in Chu. He had already stepped into the era that belonged to him. Chapter 200. Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, and Qin Wentian separated from each other. Upon seeing Wang Teng's death, an intense feeling of dread arose in their hearts. The three of them had surrounded Qin Wentian, yet Wang Teng had already died. When they stared at Qin Wentian again, their gazes were filled with trepidation, and their countenances were extremely unsightly to behold. In fact, in the direction of the Yi clan, many people stood up as they stared at the sky. Evidently, they were all stunned by this scene. How did Qin Wentian become so powerful? If this was the case, wouldn't Yi Wuk be, only to see Qin Wentian shifting his gaze onto Yi Wuk and Wu Chong? The two of them exchanged glances, as ruthless expressions could be seen on their faces. Roar! Violent waves of demonic qi gushed forth as Wu Chang's three beast-type astral souls howled. His entire person was akin to a primordial demon descending from the heavens, rushing towards Qin Wentian. Tens of thousands of demonic beasts galloped in the air, as though they were all terrifying demonic beasts, rushing towards Qin Wentian. Qin Wentian's arms were clad in demonic armor, as the demonic light in his eyes grew even more demonic. Currently, he had already cultivated the second level of the fiend transformation art, the demon advent boundary. In addition to the power of his bloodline, he was akin to a terrifying demon king. The dragon's subduing fist blasted out, as the roars of dragons echoed in the air. Incomparably violent, it collided with the tens of thousands of demonic beasts. At the same instant, the wings on Ewok's back flickered as he arced through the air in a magnificent arc. Both of his palms manifested a multicolored sword as he slashed towards Qin Wentian's throat. Qin Wentian didn't even bother to glance at Ewok. With a wave of his left hand, sword chi whistled through the air as Qin Wentian pointed out with his finger. Instantly, tens of thousands of sharp swords transformed into beams of killing intent that shot towards Ewok. Ewok's countenance drastically changed as he instantly changed his attack. At the same instant, Qin Wentian's right palm trembled several times, using an incomparably tyrannical strength to forcefully shatter Wu Chang's attack. A few beams of blood-colored light shot into Wu Chang's sea of consciousness, and the spectators only saw Wu Chang's eyes turning lifeless as his body fell from the skies. When Qin Wentian glanced at Ewok again, Ewok's countenance turned somewhat unnatural. With a flap of his wings, he abruptly turned and sped away. From the exchange earlier, he already understood that it was impossible for him to defeat Qin Wentian. At the moment of life and death, who would care about face? Life was the most important thing. The feathers of the Garuda appeared on Qin Wentian's back, as he arced through the air, resembling a true Garuda. With a swipe of his dragon-capturing hands, Ewok was unable to advance any further. The direction in which Ewok was fleeing was in the direction of those from the Yi clan. At this moment, the eyes of those from the Yi clan were filled with an intense desire to survive, as well as fear. No. The countenances of those from the Yi clan were extremely unsightly to behold. They had no way to accept such an ending. The dragon-capturing hands lifted Ewok up into the air, as Qin Wentian faced the members of the Yi clan, his countenance as calm as ever. So this is the genius that your Yi clan has always been proud of. Even before I stepped onto the path of cultivation, his halo had already descended upon the Sky Harmony City, pressuring the Qin clan, as well as me. Qin Wentian stared at the members of the Yi clan, as well as Bai Qingsong. And now, it's only been a year, right? Qin Wentian mumbled to himself, but the impact of his calm words was immense. That's right, in just a short span of a year, Qin Wentian had already defeated Ewok, who had once looked down on him with disdain. Bai Qingsong stared at the pleading eyes of Ewok, as he couldn't believe that this was all real. Release him. At this moment, a voice drifted over. The person who spoke was none other than the person seated on the azure jadeite dragon seat, Chu Tianjiao. Chu Tianjiao was still as calm as ever, and nobody knew what he was thinking about. Yet when he spoke these 4 words, the weight of his words was extremely heavy. Ewok was once again filled with hope. The eyes of those from the Yi clan also shone with a bright light. That's right, as long as Chu Tianjiao spoke, the person with the most authority in Chu had spoken, there would still be hope. Qin Wentian didn't turn his head back. He continued staring ahead, only to hear the sound of a cracking sound. Instantly, the eyes of those from the Yi clan turned ashen, as they were filled with astonishment and terror. That fiendishly handsome youth slowly released his grip, as Yi Wukei's body fell from the skies. Qin Wentian didn't even say a single word. He directly used his actions to destroy the last strand of hope they had. Chu Tianjiao had a strange expression on his face, as he froze. Although he had expected that Qin Wentian would reject, he didn't expect Qin Wentian to be so decisive, directly killing Ewok after he pleaded for mercy. It was as though he was the one who hastened Ewok's death. Qin Wentian had undoubtedly ruthlessly slapped him in the face in front of the entire Chu country. Release him. A mocking smile appeared on Qin Wentian's face. Mountain, He's merely a student of the Emperor's Star Academy. Who has he offended? Have the person who killed him ever thought of releasing him? Have the students of the Emperor's Star Academy ever thought of releasing him? When the Yi clan encircled the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City, how many of them died? Has anyone ever thought of releasing them? The words spoken by Qin Wentian were cold. He didn't even cast a glance at Chu Tianjiao. The surroundings of the Chu Emperor district were incomparably silent, no one spoke. It was as though they could feel the blazing anger in Qin Wentian's heart. If not, he wouldn't have killed Yi Wuke and the other two in such a domineering manner. Chu Tianjiao, if you had the chance to kill me, I believe that the word release wouldn't even cross your mind, right? Qin Wentian indifferently asked. Chu Tianjiao didn't reply, but it was exactly as Qin Wentian had said. If he had the chance to kill Qin Wentian, he wouldn't hesitate in the slightest. Me too. Qin Wentian calmly spoke, his words causing the gazes of the crowd to stiffen. Me too. For simple words, but it was enough to announce Qin Wentian's determination. Qin Wentian then turned his gaze onto Bai Qingsong. At this moment, Bai Qingsong was truly afraid. Once upon a time, the Yi clan had descended upon the Sky Harmony City and revealed to Bai Qingsong the news of the marriage alliance between Autumn Snow and Yi Wuke. At that time, Bai Qingsong was filled with excitement and agitation. He could see the rise of the Bai clan, as well as hope. Without hesitation, he kicked Qin Wentian away, betraying the Qin clan. And now, Yi Wuke had actually died in the hands of the youth he had kicked away. This feeling was like a dream. No one could understand Bai Qingsong's feelings right now. Did he regret it? He didn't know. Even if he regretted it, what could he do? The him now felt as though he had aged a lot. He was jealous of Qin Chuan, who had such an outstanding foster son. As for his two daughters, the genius Autumn Snow had gradually fallen, and the youngest daughter, whom he had looked down upon, had condensed an astral soul from the fourth heavenly layer. But because she despised him for repaying kindness with enmity, she broke off relations with him. And after experiencing all these setbacks, he witnessed the rise of Qin Wentian. Who could understand such a feeling? Qin Wentian. At this moment, Autumn Snow spoke. She smiled as she looked at Qin Wentian, as though a huge boulder had been lifted from her heart. I know that the Bai clan has let you down, and I have let you down as well. Sometimes, I regret the choice I made back then. After all, it was you who single-handedly allowed me to become a dazzling genius, yet what I received in return was betrayal. Not only that, the Bai clan did something unforgivable, and participated in the plot against the Qin clan. I know that I don't have the qualifications to beg for your forgiveness, but I still have to say it. At this moment, Autumn Snow calmly continued, no matter how you want to deal with me, even if you want to kill me, I will accept it wholeheartedly. I was the one who asked for it, but I beg you to spare my father. He's already old, and I'm no longer a dazzling genius. My younger sister, Bai Qing, left because of you. Do you know that Bai Qing is even more powerful than me? Her first astral soul was condensed from the fourth heavenly layer. That day, she cried as she told my father about it, revealing her astral soul. But because of her Wentian Gige, she severed all ties with my father and ran away from home, never to be heard from again. You should know how much she relies on you, so I don't have the qualifications to beg you. But I beg you, for the sake of Bai Qing, spare my father. If not, in the future, if she knew that her Wentian Gige had personally killed her father, how would she face you? Upon hearing the sincerity of Autumn Snow's words, the spectators were all moved. So the rumors back then were true. The reason why Autumn Snow could become a dazzling genius was all because of Qin Wentian. And the Bai clan had betrayed Qin Wentian. The youngest daughter of the Bai clan, Bai Qing, had actually condensed an astral soul from the fourth heavenly layer. This was simply too terrifying. Qin Wentian's heart trembled slightly, as the silhouette of a young girl appeared in his mind. He could still remember the time when the young girl handed him a dagger, asking him to use her as a hostage to escape from the Bai clan. Back then, Bai Qing had been so heartbroken. Wentian Gij. The melodious voice of the young girl resounded in the air. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He had already planned to kill Bai Qingsong today, but after hearing the words of Autumn Snow, his heart wavered. If he killed Bai Qingsong, how would he face Bai Qing in the future? Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Autumn Snow. She still had a smile on her face, but within that smile, drops of tears could be seen. In her mind, wasn't she reminiscing about the past? However, all her memories had dissipated with the wind, leaving behind only a body full of scars. Bai Qingsong, cripple your own cultivation and become an ordinary person. Qin Wentian finally spoke. He didn't want Bai Qingsong to die. Bai Qingsong's countenance faltered for a moment, before he lightly nodded his head. Lifting his palms, he abruptly slammed his palms into his own body, shattering the arterial pathways in his body. He coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood, and in an instant, he seemed to have aged by tens of years, as a few strands of white hair appeared on his head. Father. Autumn Snow supported Bai Qingsong, as she inclined her head, and looked towards Qin Wentian. However, she only saw Qin Wentian slowly turning around and slowly walking away. In the end, he didn't do anything to her. Sitting on the ground, Autumn Snow started sobbing uncontrollably as she stared at the departing silhouette of her father. Now that she was free, why did she still feel so sad? Staring at the back of Qin Wentian's figure, Autumn Snow felt as though a reincarnation cycle had passed. Qin Wentian didn't do anything to her, but why did her heart ache so much? Qin Wentian had left, and this past event had already faded away like the wind in his heart. Only that innocent and naive lass Bai Qing would remain in his warm memories. Chapter 201. Qin Wentian's name once again resounded throughout the Chu country. After becoming the champion of the Junlin banquet and stepping into Yuanfu, he consecutively killed Yi Wuk, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng, 3 dazzling geniuses, continuing to write a legend that belonged to him. Qin Wentian's status in the Chu country also became extremely sensitive. This young genius was revered by countless commoners, yet he was hated to the bone by the royal clan and the Yi clan. But because of Dai Yi's existence, nobody dared to touch him. Even when the Yi clan saw Yi Wuk die in front of them, they didn't dare to act because Yi Wuk and Qin Wentian had agreed beforehand that this would be a life-and-death battle. If Qin Wentian died in battle, Dai Yi would definitely not seek revenge. If Yi Wuk died in battle, how would the Yi clan dare to act? Outside the imperial city, in the small town next to the dark forest, the adventurers were busy. They came and went in a hurry, and when they had free time, they would chat. This was the time when they were most relaxed. Once they stepped into the dark forest, even their closest friends might betray them. You guys didn't see it yesterday. That brat Qin Wentian is so fucking powerful. With a single roar, he killed Wang Teng. Too powerful. A burly man was currently beaming with joy as he spoke to a girl beside him. He's only 17 years of age, is he really that powerful? The girl had a look of disbelief on her face. The others beside her also came forward and asked, Brother Ox, are you exaggerating? Exaggerating? Brother Ox's eyes widened as he continued, you guys didn't see it with your own eyes, so you don't know how powerful that young man is. I've already said it in a low-profile manner. In any case, with just a breath of his, he could annihilate all of us. After Yi Wuk defeated Chiu Mo, he was ranked number 4 among the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. But what happened in the end? He was defeated with a single punch. What kind of bullshit genius is he? Brother Ox, tell us the details of the battle. What does that fellow Qin Wentian look like? Does he have a big head and thick limbs? The beautiful eyes of the girl flickered with curiosity. Yes, his arms were as thick as my arms, and his legs were like the hooves of an ox. Brother Ox grinned. Ahem. The sound of coughing drifted over from the side. Brother Nyo and the others turned their gazes over, and after that, they saw a 17-year-old young man with a bitter smile on his face. In the arms of the young man, there was an extremely adorable snow-white puppy. Qin Wentian was depressed. The rumors among the people were getting more and more unbelievable. However, this guy called Brother Nyo was really good at bragging. His beautiful image was completely destroyed. What? You don't believe me? He's about the same age as you, but you look so weak. I'm afraid you can't even withstand one punch from him. Brother Nyo continued to boast to Qin Wentian. Yes, I believe you. Qin Wentian nodded unceasingly. After which, he quickened his steps and entered the dark forest. Scratching his head, he stared at Little Rascal in his arms and asked, Little Rascal, am I really that ugly? Qin Wentian's voice drifted into the ears of Brother Nyo and the others. They stopped in their tracks and were stunned. When they looked forward again, the silhouette of the young man gradually became blurry and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The others beside Brother Nyo all drew in a deep breath as they turned their gazes onto Brother Nyo. That must be a liar. What sort of character is Qin Wentian? How could he be such a handsome young man? Do you guys believe it? Brother Nyo laughed, but he felt that his tone wasn't confident enough. He repeated, yes, he must be a liar, pretending to be Qin Wentian. Right now, Qin Wentian was already at the Yuanfu realm. The chances of him encountering danger in the dark forest were naturally much lower. Although he met with some trouble, he still managed to arrive at the place he was looking for. On the vast grassland, there was a hill. Qin Wentian stood there, surveying his surroundings. The past was still vivid in his mind, but he couldn't see the 9 mountain peaks. Back then, this was precisely the place where he met the green-robed middle-aged man in his dream. He dreamt of the spring and autumn dream, and at the same time, obtained the River Mountain catalogue. The more Qin Wentian looked at it, the more profound it became. Even now, every time he looked at it, he would gain different insights, deepening his comprehension of the martial Tao. Occasionally, he would speculate about the strength of the green-robed middle-aged man in his dream. Most probably, the middle-aged man wouldn't be any weaker than the Azure Emperor. And now, Qin Wentian was returning to this place because he wanted to fulfill a long-cherished wish of his. Back then, when he was on the verge of death, he was brought here by the Black-Winged Condor. Before he left, he promised the Black-Winged Condor that he would gift 3 drops of his blood to the Black-Winged Condor when he was proficient in using the power of his bloodline. Today, he was here to fulfill his promise. The location they had agreed on was precisely here. From afar, the silhouettes of demonic beasts could be seen, but they didn't approach. Instead, they sped away while emitting low-sounding roars, as though they were summoning their king. Indeed, not too long after, a strong gust of wind could be heard whistling through the skies as a gigantic silhouette sped towards them. In an instant, the silhouette of the Black-Winged Condor had already arrived in the air. The Black-Winged Condor swooped down, landing in front of Qin Wentian. The baleful eyes of the Black-Winged Condor flickered with a hint of astonishment. Although Qin Wentian had an agreement with the Black-Winged Condor in the past, he didn't have too much hope in it. Humans placed great importance on benefits. Although demonic beasts were extremely vicious, when it came to craftiness, humans were definitely a notch above demonic beasts. As a demonic beast with high intellect, the Black-Winged Condor had a deep understanding of the personalities of humans. Hence, with regards to Qin Wentian's agreement, the Black-Winged Condor was somewhat taken aback. Senior. Only to see Qin Wentian lightly nodding his head to the Black-Winged Condor. After which, his left hand sliced across the index finger of his right hand. A sword light flashed, and fresh blood gushed forth. The blood in Qin Wentian's body started to seethe, as streams of blood-colored runes frenziedly flowed into the tip of his finger. That drop of blood seemed to contain a terrifying amount of bloodline power. The Black-Winged Condor opened its beak, and with a flick of Qin Wentian's finger, 3 droplets of blood flew into the Black-Winged Condor's mouth. The Black-Winged Condor swallowed the droplets, and within its body, a strange energy started to seethe. Even Qin Wentian, who was standing at the side, could faintly sense it. This caused Qin Wentian to be extremely bewildered. Was his bloodline power really that good? Woo, woo. On the ground, Little Rascal inclined its head and stared at Qin Wentian. That pair of quick-witted eyes of its were extremely moving, and that pitiful look on its face was extremely adorable. You want it as well? A strange expression appeared on Qin Wentian's face. As the sound of his voice faded, he saw Little Rascal nodding its little head incessantly. Momentarily, Qin Wentian rolled his eyes. Could it be that his bloodline power had some sort of unique attraction towards demonic beasts? Open your mouth, Qin Wentian helplessly stated. Little Rascal's eyes brightened, and it cooperated and opened its mouth. Qin Wentian once again circulated the blood-colored runes into the blood on his finger. After which, he squatted down and allowed the blood essence to drip into Little Rascal's mouth. Little Rascal's eyes closed, and under Qin Wentian's gaze, its body gradually grew larger. Within its body, a blood-colored light flashed, and the blood in Little Rascal's body seemed to be seething. Bloodline power. Qin Wentian's countenance stiffened. Could it be that his blood essence had activated the demonic bloodline in Little Rascal's body? Golden-colored inscriptions flickered, and under the dumbfounded gaze of Qin Wentian, Little Rascal's body grew even larger. Now, it was the size of an adult demonic wolf, and what was even more shocking was that its snow-white fur actually glowed with a golden light. The golden fur on its forehead grew even more distinct, forming a curved line. Its sharp claws seemed to be clad in a layer of golden armor. That armor was golden in color. That armor was golden in color, golden in color. What demonic beast is this little fellow? Qin Wentian was speechless. However, this little fellow's intelligence was extremely high. Ever since it started following him, it could already understand human language. The black-winged condor abruptly let out a shrill screech, as though it was piercing through the heavens, causing all the demonic beasts in the surrounding area to go berserk. Their king was howling. Only then did Qin Wentian turn his attention back to the black-winged condor. At this moment, a blood-colored light erupted from the condor's body, causing its body to be enveloped by a halo of light. Its aura caused Qin Wentian to feel a sense of dread. However, at this moment, the black-winged condor was seriously staring at Little Rascal, as though it had seen something astonishing. At this moment, Little Rascal's eyes abruptly opened, as a golden light that caused the hearts of others to palpitate flickered within. Pooh! Little Rascal opened its beak and spat out resplendent golden runes. Upon seeing the golden runes gradually converging into a diagram, the body of the black-winged condor trembled involuntarily, as though it had seen something inconceivable. Little Rascal's gaze was fixated on Qin Wentian's finger, as an expression of hope appeared on its face. You want me to drip a drop of my blood onto the divine inscription? Qin Wentian asked Little Rascal. Little Rascal nodded unceasingly. Qin Wentian smiled, as he dripped another drop of blood onto the divine inscription diagram. Instantly, the blood flowed unceasingly, swiftly merging with the divine inscription diagram. The divine inscription diagram transformed into a beam of light, directly entering Little Rascal's head. Yeah! A voice abruptly rang out in Qin Wentian's mind, causing him to be stunned. After which, he saw Little Rascal transforming back into a snow-white puppy. His eyes flickered involuntarily as he asked, Little Rascal, is that your voice? Yeah. The voice rang out again, but this time, Qin Wentian was extremely depressed. Looking at the adorable appearance of Little Rascal, he carried it in his arms and patted its head. Seems like you're still a wimpy kid. You can only understand words but can't speak. What yeah? I don't understand at all. Although he said this, Qin Wentian's heart was filled with shock. Earlier, that divine inscription diagram actually allowed Little Rascal to directly transmit its voice into his mind. This was definitely a miraculous thing. The black-winged condor saw Qin Wentian patting Little Rascal's head, as though he was treating a pet. Its head shrunk backwards, as though it was thinking about something. After which, the black-winged condor turned and lay there, turning its head back to look at Qin Wentian. Michum. A strange light flickered in Qin Wentian's eyes. After which, he stepped onto the back of the black-winged condor, and in an instant, a raging wind kicked up as the black-winged condor soared into the air, continuing its journey into the depths of the dark forest. Below, a myriad of demonic beasts galloped forth, trampling the earth, emitting terrifying rumbling sounds. All of them were following the black-winged condor. As they continued deeper into the dark forest, Qin Wendian discovered, to his shock, that there were a few demonic beasts with tyrannical auras. Similar to the black-winged condor, these demonic beasts were also flying towards a certain direction. Within the dark forest, the number of demonic beasts was like a flood. However, this wasn't the direction of the royal capital of Chu. It was the exact opposite direction, the central region of the dark forest. Chapter 202. Only when Qin Wendian truly entered the depths of the dark forest did he realize that this place was far more mysterious and terrifying than what he had imagined. The dark forest that enveloped the royal capital of Chu was even older than the history of Chu. Nobody knew how long it had existed for, and nobody in Chu had truly unearthed all of its secrets. Maybe there were people who had entered the depths of the dark forest before, but even those characters wouldn't stay in Chu. Hence, in Chu, very few people had ever mentioned what was in the depths of the dark forest. Qin Wendian stood on the back of the black-winged condor, watching as the myriad of demonic beasts galloped through the air, passing through a mysterious space, passing through an ancient mountain range, passing through a forest within a forest. And at this moment, the scene in front of Qin Wendian was even more shocking. Numerous sharp mountain peaks were connected to each other, forming a barrier between the heavens and the earth, blocking out the entire sky. The myriad of demonic beasts passed through the barrier, and the sunlight grew dimmer. In front of them was no longer the dark forest, but rather, a vast expanse of plains. Finally, the speed of the black-winged condor slowed down. Its body descended by several degrees, and was now flying at a low altitude. The speed of the other demonic beasts also slowed down, and they slowly advanced forward. There were even several demonic beasts that were crawling on the ground, advancing forward. The posture of these demonic beasts caused Qin Wendian to feel a deep sense of awe. These demonic beasts gave him the illusion that they were on a pilgrimage. The myriad of demonic beasts descended upon this area at the same time. Their posture was so pious, as though they were paying their respects to the saint of all demonic beasts, the lord of all demonic beasts. At this moment, a sharp glint of light flashed in Qin Wendian's eyes. In front of him, two incomparably gigantic statues appeared. One of the statues was that of a terrifying giant that was over 100 meters tall, while the other statue was that of a fearsome demonic beast, squatting beside the giant. Are the demonic beasts in the dark forest really here on a pilgrimage? Qin Wendian's heart trembled. Finally, the two statues drew nearer and nearer. Even the black-winged condor landed on the ground, revealing a pious posture as it prostrated itself before the two statues, as though it was paying respects to its king. Demonic beasts were intelligent and had their own intelligence. Although they were more vicious than humans, they were more loyal to their king. This could be seen from the arrival of thousands of demonic beasts. Abruptly, Qin Wendian felt his entire body turning cold. After which, he saw several powerful demonic beasts glaring at him and little rascal in his embrace with a cold gaze. Qin Wendian was taken aback. It seemed that these demonic beasts were dissatisfied with the fact that he and the little fellow did not kneel down devoutly. Wisps of terrifying demonic aura enveloped the black-winged condor as they let out low roars, as if they were communicating with the black-winged condor. Little rascal seemed to have sensed the evil intentions of these demonic beasts. It leapt down from Qin Wendian's embrace and abruptly transformed into a baleful demonic beast. The golden glow on its forehead flickered, and the resplendent golden claws seemed to be clad in demonic armor, exuding a sense of nobility. Roar! A low roar rang out as little rascal roared at these demonic beasts. After which, its body transformed into a blur as it dashed forward. Little rascal's speed was exceedingly fast, and in an instant, it appeared on the head of the demonic beast statue. Momentarily, the demonic beasts all started howling madly, wanting nothing more than to swallow Little Rascal whole. However, they didn't dare to advance any further. Roar! Little Rascal howled to the heavens, its solemn voice resonated for a long time. It held its head high, filled with arrogance. Finally, a few powerful demonic beasts could no longer endure Little Rascal's provocation. Flapping their wings, they dashed forward. However, just as they were about to reach the statue, they found that they couldn't advance any further. Rumbling sounds rang out as their bodies were all jolted back. However, they didn't give up and continued to rush forward. This repeated over and over again, causing them to cough out blood unceasingly. Such a situation caused Qin Wentian to be extremely shocked. These demonic beasts were truly stubborn. However, what was even more shocking was that these demonic beasts were clearly obstructed by some sort of energy. Why was Little Rascal able to arrive on the head of the statue unscathed? At this moment, Little Rascal raised its head high and continued to howl in a low voice, causing Qin Wentian to feel that it was extremely funny. To think that such a docile little fellow would actually have such an arrogant side. Yeah! Little Rascal's voice suddenly rang out in Qin Wentian's mind. An expression of bewilderment involuntarily appeared on his face, only to see Little Rascal turning its gaze towards him. Its sharp claws pointed at the gigantic statue that was over 100 meters tall, as though it was hinting for him to go over. As Qin Wentian advanced, a group of demonic beasts instantly surrounded him. However, at this moment, the black-winged condor appeared beside Qin Wentian, letting out a low roar. Only then did the demonic beasts give way, but their gazes towards Qin Wentian were still filled with unfriendliness. As he neared the statue, all of a sudden, Qin Wentian felt a surge of pressure. Rumble! A surge of energy abruptly gushed into Qin Wentian's body, forcing him to retreat as he groaned in agony. When he inclined his head and stared at the statue, his heart trembled violently. Earlier, he could faintly sense that the statue seemed to have a life of its own, as a terrifying wave of will energy gushed into his body. Could this statue be a dead expert? An absurd thought suddenly appeared in Qin Wentian's mind. This time around, the blood in his body seethed as an intense demonic qi gushed forth from him. Astral light enveloped his body as he advanced step by step towards the statue. This time around, the will of the statue was even more obvious. It was like an overwhelming pressure, causing his heart to pound violently as his blood vessels were suppressed. This will of the statue was too terrifying. Qin Wentian advanced with great difficulty. A thunderous boom rang out as the terrifying will of the statue slammed into Qin Wentian, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood as his body was flung through the air once again. His blood splattered through the air, and abruptly, a mysterious force enveloped Qin Wentian's blood. After which, the fresh blood transformed into a strand of silk that flowed into the statue. The earth abruptly trembled as a fearsome heavenly might gushed forth from the statue. It was like an ancient heavenly deity, causing the demonic beasts present to have a hard time breathing. Bzzz. Traces of dust drifted away from the statue. The eyes of the statue gleamed with a terrifying light, causing the earth to tremble and the surrounding mountain peaks to tremble unceasingly. In the air, boundless astral light shone through the cracks in the mountain range, cascading onto the statue before extending outwards, enveloping this entire space. In an instant, a heavenly screen appeared in this space. This heavenly screen was formed from astral light, encompassing everything. Constellation. Qin Wentian felt a sense of familiarity when he saw this scene. Oh right, that day outside the divine sect of Qin Wentian, the middle-aged man who might be his old fogey father, wasn't he facing a group of terrifying characters who could unleash their constellations? At the instant this strange scene appeared, Qin Wentian and the demonic beasts felt as though they were carrying a terrifying mountain on their backs. However, at the same time, he felt a mysterious energy enveloping him, helping him to resist the pressure. He slowly walked forward, arriving at the side of the ancient statue as he immersed himself in this intent. Roar! Little Rascal roared once more, excitement could be seen in its eyes. The demonic beasts were all deeply shaken when they saw this scene. Right now, they were all wondering what sort of existences little rascal and that human were exactly. In a place far away from Chu, in the Ginka continent of Grand Xia, on the stargazing platform of the Venerate Heavens sect, a white-haired old man had his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the heavens. His resplendent eyes seemed to be able to see through the past and present. With a wave of his hand, a map appeared in front of the white-haired old man. This incomparably gigantic map was spread out in the air, covering boundless territories. One could say that this map was one of the most complete maps of the Grand Xia Empire, and on it, the vast and boundless territories of Grand Xia were marked out. The old man's palm slashed through the air, and an instant later, a bright light appeared in a certain area of Grand Xia. On it, 2 words could be seen, Chu. The old man furrowed his brows. Chu was actually such a small country. It shouldn't be possible for such an existence to appear here. In that case, there could only be one possibility, ancient ruins. The demonic constellation has descended on Chu. Quickly go and investigate. The voice of the old man abruptly rang out in the Venerate Heavens sect, causing the hearts of countless experts to tremble. Their gazes all turned in the direction of the stargazing platform. Chu. This was the first time this name appeared in the Venerate Heavens sect, causing huge waves of commotion. Not only that, not too long after, the voice that appeared in the Venerate Heavens sect was also transmitted out, resounding throughout Ginku and even spreading to the other territories of Grand Xia. However, the people of Chu had no idea of this. As the current ruler of Chu, the third prince, Chu Tianjiao, was currently feeling extremely uneasy. This was the first time he felt such great waves in his heart. In front of him, there was a figure with his head lowered. This was the news he brought, causing Chu Tianjiao to feel extremely uneasy. Are you certain? Chu Tianjiao asked for the third time, staring at the figure in front of him. Your subordinate is certain. Shaolan died outside the royal capital. Amidst the heavy atmosphere, that figure replied in a low voice, feeling an intense sense of unease. Has the corpse been properly disposed of? Chu Tianjiao asked again. For now. That figure replied. Deal with it cleanly. You should know what to do. Chu Tianjiao coldly spoke, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. That figure nodded, bowed and retreated. He naturally understood what to do. For those who knew of this matter, other than himself, no one else could be spared. But of course, at this moment, he was still thinking if he should make plans for himself. After that figure left, Chu Tianjiao drew in a deep breath. Shaolan's death in Chu was naturally not his doing. Shaolan was someone from the Shao faction of the 9 Mystical Palace. Regardless of who killed him, as long as he died because of matters of Chu, the royal clan of Chu wouldn't be able to escape responsibility. Naturally, this wasn't done by Dai. Since Dai had already spared Shaolan, there was no need for him to assassinate him. Doing so would only infuriate the 9 Mystical Palace. In that case, who was the culprit? What made Chu Tianjiao even more shocked was that news of this matter quickly spread throughout Chu. This caused Chu Tianjiao to feel a chill in his heart, and he immediately thought of a solution. He immediately ordered his men to inform the 9 Mystical Palace of this matter. Chapter 203. After the news of Shaolan's death spread out, Dai, who was preparing to leave Chu, stayed behind. At the same time, he ordered those from the Emperor's Star Academy to leave the royal capital. As long as they left, the 9 Mystical Palace wouldn't be able to hunt them down one by one. Today, in the royal capital of Chu, Chu Tianjiao and a group of people stood there respectfully, as though they were welcoming someone. From afar, the howls of demonic beasts could be heard. Several gigantic demonic beasts could be seen flapping their wings as they soared through the air. When they arrived, they stopped and slowly descended from the skies. A raging wind gusted, buffeting the bodies of Chu Tianjiao and the rest. However, Chu Tianjiao didn't feel the slightest bit of dissatisfaction as he respectfully stared at the newcomers. A few silhouettes descended from the demonic beasts, coldly staring at Chu Tianjiao and the rest. Finally, the gaze of one of them landed on Xiao Lu. "Are you the crown prince of Snowcloud from the Xiao clan?" That person asked in a low voice, his tone cold. Xiao Lu bowed. "Junior Xiao Lu pays his respects to the elders of my clan." "You really know how to use connections." That person indifferently stated, "Explain everything clearly. I want the truth. If you lie, you will have to bear the consequences." Xiao Lu respectfully bowed as he recounted the events that transpired. He mentioned that Xiao Lan had aided the royal clan in resisting against the Emperor's Star Academy, and that the members of the 9 Mystical Palace were slaughtered by Dai. Dai spared Xiao Lan, but in the end, Xiao Lan died outside the royal capital. After hearing Xiao Lu's words, that person shifted his gaze onto Chu Tianjiao as he asked, "There should be a heavenly dipper sovereign in Chu. Why didn't you fight? Why did you allow the members of my 9 Mystical Palace to be slaughtered?" As the sound of his voice faded, a surging pressure enveloped Chu Tianjiao, causing him to feel a chill run down his spine. Junior didn't know that there was a heavenly dipper sovereign in the Emperor's Star Academy. By the time something happened, it was already too late. "Junior is responsible for Xiao Lan's death, and I'm willing to accept my punishment." Chu Tianjiao humbly spoke, appearing extremely polite. However, his words implied that Xiao Lan's death had nothing to do with him. "In the past, you didn't know, but now you should know. I order the heavenly dipper sovereigns of Chu to kill Dai." That person spoke in a domineering manner, causing Chu Tianjiao's heart to turn cold, yet he didn't dare to disobey. He respectfully replied, "Junior will inform the ancestor immediately." That person didn't say anything, indicating that he had tacitly agreed. After Chu Tianjiao left, the others were still trembling in fear, not daring to say anything. Not long after, within the royal palace of Chu, a terrifying aura permeated the atmosphere, shaking the entire royal palace. After which, the silhouette of an old man walked out from the royal palace, as a towering blood might gushed towards the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy. Everywhere it passed by, the crowd felt as though their bodies were about to be corroded, causing them to feel extremely unbearable. Mandate of blood. It seems like the second level of the mandate of corrosion is the mandate of blood. Those from the 9 Mystical Palace murmured in a low voice as they sensed the towering mandate of blood. The royal capital trembled once again, as a towering blood might bore down on the earth. Not too long after, in the direction of the Emperor's Star Academy, a similarly terrifying pressure gushed forth. In that instant, everyone in the vicinity of the Emperor's Star Academy felt as though their bodies were being restrained. It was extremely unbearable, as though someone was grabbing onto their throats, excruciating pain. The two terrifying forces clashed in the air above the royal capital, causing countless people to flee the area. This time around, it was different from when Dai killed the expert from the 9 Mystical Palace. The intent of this clash was so intense that it felt as though it could kill anyone. In the air above the royal capital, Chu Tianjiao gazed at the battlefield as he sighed in his heart. The ancestor of Chu was the protector of the 9 Mystical Palace. Unless the Chu country was on the verge of destruction, he would never exit his seclusion. However, because of Xiao Lan's death, he was forced to fight against Dai, who was also at the Heavenly Dipper realm. This made Chu Tianjiao silently swear that if he succeeded in the future, he would definitely control the 9 Mystical Palace. The mandate of blood against the mandate of force. Both are at the second level, but Dai seems to have the upper hand. An expert from the 9 Mystical Palace stated in a low voice. Dai should be one of those fellows from the Azure Emperor Palace. As the sound of his voice faded, the experts from the 9 Mystical Palace stepped out, flying towards the direction of the clash. The clash between Dai and the ancestor of Chu grew more and more terrifying. Dai's astral souls were stronger, but he only had 2 astral souls while his opponent had 3. Both Dai and the ancestor of Chu had 4 astral souls, but the reason why they couldn't condense 4 was because the amount of astral energy required to condense a astral soul was extremely terrifying. Hence, even the ancestor of Chu, who had an entire country's worth of resources to support his cultivation, had yet to condense his fourth astral soul. The Chu country, to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, was ultimately too small. Their resources were limited, and once they reached a certain level, their cultivation would be restricted by the lack of resources. Dai's long robes fluttered in the wind. Upon seeing the experts from the 9 mystical palace descending, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. Although I die, I have no regrets. But before I die, I have to eliminate the threat of Chu. Dai's countenance was as calm as ever, but in his heart, he was already prepared to die. With the death of the ancestor of Chu, as long as the experts from the 9 mystical palace didn't interfere and deal with Qin Wentian, there was no need for him to worry about Qin Wentian's safety. As he thought of this, Qin Wentian stepped out as a towering blood might gush towards him. Qin Wentian clenched his fists, and a moment later, it was as though a myriad of palms had appeared, grabbing onto Qin Wentian. The countenance of the ancestor of Chu stiffened. Dai, was he courting death? Die. The withered body took a step forward, and a horrifying blood-red light stuck to Dai's body, corroding his body in an instant. However, Dai's body was getting closer and closer. Boom! The heavens and earth trembled. The old ancestor of Chu only felt his body sinking, as a boundless pressure bore down on him. At the same time, a pair of invisible palms held him firmly in place. Dai's speed increased as he transformed into a resplendent beam of light that shot towards the old ancestor. A brilliant light flashed, the will to die was born. The cold wind howled, there would be no regrets. Boom! A towering amount of energy slammed into the body of the ancestor of Chu. Dai's entire body trembled as he looked down on the ancestor of Chu. However, with a single swipe of his palm, a gigantic palm imprint appeared in the air, locking the body of the ancestor of Chu within. Have you gone mad? The ancestor of Chu howled in rage. However, Dai's countenance was still as ruthless as ever. With an abrupt clench of his fist, the body of his opponent transformed into a beam of blood-colored light, piercing into Dai's body. Dai's entire body was dyed red with blood, and at this moment, half of his silhouette had already been corroded. Swishing sounds rang out as a silvery light flashed past. Numerous chains pierced through Dai's shoulders, tightly binding his body. Dai had no strength to resist, his blood dyed the ground red. His shoulders were tightly bound by the chains, as he was dragged through the air. Xiaolan's death has nothing to do with me. Dai maintained his composure. Even though he knew that the 9 mystical palace wouldn't spare him, he still had to make his stance clear. He hoped that the 9 mystical palace wouldn't vent their anger on the students of the Emperor Star Academy. Those from the 9 mystical palace didn't reply. Dai was dragged along by the chains as they soared through the air, causing the people of Chu to be stunned. Was this the power of the 9 mystical palace? In front of them, Chu was simply too weak. Chu Tianjiao felt an unbearable feeling in his heart. Although he had captured Dai, the ancestor of Chu had become a sacrificial offering. The 9 mystical palace was too ruthless. If they had acted earlier, they would have been able to save the ancestor of Chu. Yet, they didn't. This was the price that Chu had to pay for Xiaolan's death. Capture the remnants of the Emperor Star Academy. Don't leave any survivors. Also, find out who the culprit is. In the air, the experts from the 9 mystical palace stood on the backs of demonic beasts as they departed. Dai's body was still bound by the chains, a tragic sight to behold. Very quickly, the experts from the 9 mystical palace disappeared, as though they had never appeared before. However, Chu Tianjiao knew that even if he were to enter the 9 mystical palace in the future, he wouldn't be able to live a good life. Pass down my command, capture and kill those from the Emperor's Star Academy. Chu Tianjiao coldly commanded. Instantly, his voice echoed throughout the entire royal palace. It seemed as though a new wave of carnage was about to erupt in the Chu country. Outside the dark forest, a white crane soared through the air. On its back, a graceful silhouette flew into the depths of the dark forest. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes were filled with anxiety and worry. She knew that Qin Wendian had entered the dark forest. Now that Dai was dead and the Emperor's Star Academy was disbanded, if Qin Wendian were to be discovered by the royal clan, he would undoubtedly die. She had to inform Qin Wendian not to return. However, given how vast the dark forest was, it was exceedingly difficult to find a single person. Mo Qingqing searched the dark forest for half a month, yet she still couldn't find any traces of Qin Wendian. At this moment, there was a lot of dust on Mo Qingqing's green robes, and her countenance was extremely haggard. It was extremely tiring to live one's life in the midst of worry, and right now, she was truly afraid that Qin Wendian would return to the royal capital. Demonic beasts. At this moment, Mo Qingqing's countenance stiffened. In front of her, a few tyrannical demonic beasts were staring at her. Their gazes were ice cold, exuding a terrifying baleful aura. Let's go. The white crane soared through the air, rapidly departing. However, the demonic beasts howled in rage as they chased after the white crane, causing the entire dark forest to tremble. With regards to all of this, Qin Wendian had no idea. He was still in the central region of the dark forest, sitting cross-legged in front of the two statues. A resplendent constellation enveloped this entire space. From the statue, Qin Wendian could clearly sense an extremely tyrannical mandate. It was similar to the time when he fought against Xiaolan, when Xiaolan directly attacked his sea of consciousness. That was a type of mandate. Naturally, Xiaolan's strength clearly couldn't be compared to a constellation. The statue in front of him caused him to gradually gain a trace of comprehension, as he came into contact with another layer of power on the martial path. Why were astral novas so powerful? What was the origin of astral constellations? Were the abilities bestowed upon Wuxiu by his astral souls truly merely the amplification of his strength and the innate attributes of his astral souls? Qin Wendian released his astral souls as he silently comprehended. Behind him, the demonic beasts were still there. Little Rascal bared his fangs and brandished his claws at them in an extremely arrogant manner. If Mo Qingqing saw this scene, she would definitely find it extremely interesting. That docile little fellow actually seemed to be taming these ferocious demonic beasts. Chapter 204. Cultivation had no sense of time, especially when one was in a unique state of comprehension. At this moment, Qin Wendian was in an ethereal state, as though he was in a dream. He couldn't sense anything happening in the external world. Within the wondrous state, there seemed to be a powerful constellation enveloping the heavens and earth. The Wanxiang state was resplendent, and there seemed to be a mysterious energy emanating from it. This feeling grew clearer and clearer as time flowed by. Will, mandate. Qin Wendian murmured in a low voice. The resplendent heavenly hammer astral soul radiated forth, causing a mysterious force field to appear in the space around Qin Wendian. For stellar martial cultivators, after Yuanfu, their astral souls would correspond to their Yuanfu. Astral souls are the energy of stellar martial cultivators, and the will of their astral souls is the will of stellar martial cultivators. An astral soul heavenly hammer appeared in Qin Wendian's hands as he gripped it tightly. His palms felt as though they were filled with even more strength than before, as a mysterious intent permeated the surroundings. This energy was incomparably profound, yet it gave Qin Wendian a sense of reality. It was as though his strength could grow stronger. This was no longer a simple augmentation of his astral soul. It was a type of mandate. He believed that as he continued to cultivate, this energy would only grow stronger and stronger. In fact, even his constellation would be born from this. Abruptly, Qin Wendian opened his eyes as a sharp glint of light flickered within. Staring at the statue in front of him, it was as though he could sense the strength of the will contained within it. Qin Wendian didn't know that at this moment, he had truly stepped into the mandate of force. The mandate he comprehended earlier was the first level of the mandate of force, strength. There were many types of mandates in the world, and each type of mandate could give rise to different types of abilities. However, the first level of the mandate of force would never change. The first level of the mandate of force was strength. As for the cultivation realms after that, he would have to depend on himself to comprehend it. Once he stepped into the second level, he would have the qualifications to condense an astral nova. At the third level, he would be able to condense his celestial phenomenon. As for the cultivation realms after Yuan Fu, it was a bottleneck. Countless cultivators were stuck at this bottleneck. Other than the vast amount of cultivation resources required, one would also need a high level of comprehension to advance further. Even a genius from the Nine Mystical Palace like Shaolin only managed to comprehend the first level of the Mandate of Lightning when he was at the third level of Yuan Fu. As for Qin Wentian, his comprehension ability was exceedingly high, and under a stroke of good fortune, he managed to comprehend the Mandate of Lightning when he was at the first level of Yuan Fu. As for my great dreams Astral Soul and Demon Sovereign Astral Soul, if I were to properly comprehend them, I might be able to gain some insights as well. Qin Wentian murmured in his heart. After which, he closed his eyes and continued his cultivation. Qin Wentian didn't know that at this moment, the royal capital of Chu was in a state of unrest. At the same time, within the dark forest, there were many terrifying characters. At this moment, Mo Qingcheng was in a sorry state. She had no way of knowing which direction to go, and was being hunted by demonic beasts in all directions. Even her white crane had died in the hands of demonic beasts. She could still remember the scene of the white crane's head being smashed apart by the claws of a powerful flying beast. Mo Qingcheng's eyes were red, and her beautiful robes were riddled with scars. Her beautiful countenance was extremely haggard, as though she hadn't been able to properly rest for the past few days. Wentian, where are you exactly? Mo Qingcheng had no idea of the current situation in the royal capital. She only hoped that Qin Wentian wouldn't go out. I will definitely find you. An unwavering determination flickered in the eyes of the young girl as she prepared to move again. But at this moment, a whistling sound rang out in the air. Raising her head, Mo Qingcheng saw a group of silhouettes walking over. These people stood in the air, giving her a feeling that they were extremely powerful. One of them glanced at Mo Qingcheng, but very quickly, he shifted his gaze away. The demonic qi in the mountain range ahead is extremely dense. Let's go take a look. A figure calmly spoke, as his silhouette moved like the wind, advancing forward. Mo Qingcheng's eyes flickered as she followed after the silhouettes of those people. The experts in the air all entered the mountain range, as they whistled through the air. What a dense demonic qi, seems like we've come to the right place. But isn't the news from the Venerate Heavens sect a little too exaggerated? Could it be that that old man is really able to pry into the secrets of the heavens from the constellations? Don't underestimate the Venerate Heavens sect. After so many years, the ranking list created by the Venerate Heavens sect is the most authoritative one in Grand Xia. That old man truly has his own outstanding points. Finally, they saw the demonic beasts in the distance. Their eyes narrowed as one of them coldly laughed, so many little demons. There's even a human little fellow. In the eyes of these people, the demonic beasts in the dark forest were actually all little demons. Qin Wentian was startled awake. He turned his head and stared at the group of experts that just arrived. His gaze froze, only to see the demonic beasts howling in rage at them, as though they wanted to obstruct their advance. What a bunch of ignorant little demons. One of them laughed. After that, he waved his hand and in an instant, a terrifying blood-colored beam of light shot downwards, enveloping the demonic beasts below. In an instant, the group of demonic beasts howled as their bodies exploded, causing blood to spurt out in all directions. Will. Qin Wentian's countenance sank. This was the same type of energy he comprehended earlier, but it was much stronger compared to his own. Senior. Qin Wentian called out. Momentarily, that person halted his attack and turned his gaze onto Qin Wentian. These demonic beasts are the demonic beasts of this dark forest. They came here to pay their respects to these two statues. Junior came here by chance and discovered that these two statues were extraordinary. I hope that Senior can spare them on account that these demonic beasts didn't destroy the ancient ruins. Junior will bring them away now, Qin Wendian spoke. Little fellow, you actually have a heart that bemoans the state of the universe and pity the fate of mankind. But you are right, on account that they didn't destroy the ancient ruins, if you can bring them away, I will spare them. That person laughed. Qin Wendian glanced at Little Rascal who had leapt into his embrace. After which, Little Rascal let out a few low roars, and the black-winged condor also let out a frenzied roar. Only then did the demonic beasts gradually calm down as they retreated from this place. However, the eyes of these demonic beasts were filled with rage, and their gazes were filled with killing intent. Qin Wendian followed the black-winged condor as they departed. The experts in the air didn't obstruct them. To them, these demonic beasts and Qin Wendian weren't even worth a mention. Seems like this little fellow has the ability to tame demonic beasts. An expert in the air laughed. After which, he turned his gaze onto the two statues as his countenance turned heavy. The demonic beasts departed, trampling the earth. Qin Wendian walked out, only to see that there were even more experts in the air. He couldn't help but to sigh in his heart, to think that this ancient ruins would attract so many terrifying characters. Let's go. Qin Wendian spoke in a low voice. The silhouette of the black-winged condor soared up into the air, departing into the distance. The roars of demonic beasts drifted over, and as Qin Wendian's gaze drifted over, his eyes narrowed. Ching Cheng. Qin Wendian directly leapt down, and roared in rage at the demonic beasts surrounding Imo Qingcheng, scram. Little Rascal transforming into a terrifying golden-colored primordial demon. With a howl of rage, it shocked the surrounding demonic beasts. Roar! A golden bolt of lightning arced through the air, and a demonic beast that was attacking Imo Qingcheng had its neck bitten off, falling to the side. Little Rascal supported its body, and its cold golden eyes swept over the demonic beasts, exuding an incomparably cold aura. Qingcheng. Qin Wendian turned his gaze onto Imo Qingcheng. Right now, Imo Qingcheng was covered in blood, and her aura was unstable. Her countenance was extremely haggard, and the instant she saw Qin Wendian, her eyes reddened. Coughing a few times, a smile appeared on her face as she walked to the side of Qin Wendian. Opening her arms, she hugged Qin Wendian tightly. You bastard, I've been searching for you for a long time. Imo Qingcheng's delicate body trembled lightly in Qin Wendian's embrace. Qin Wendian only felt a wave of guilt, and he lightly patted her back, stroking her hair as he spoke in a low voice, everything's fine now, everything's fine now. I'm so afraid that you would return to the royal capital. Imo Qingcheng spoke in a low voice. What happened? Qin Wendian felt somewhat bewildered. Xiaolan died, and several experts from the 9 mystical palace invaded Chu, causing the royal ancestor to fight against Senior Dai. The royal ancestor died in battle, and Senior Dai was heavily injured, and was brought away by the 9 mystical palace. And now, the royal clan is going all out to hunt down the students of the Emperor's Star Academy, killing them all without mercy. Especially you. Imo Qingcheng's words caused Qin Wendian to feel a chill in his heart, as his aura fluctuated violently. The two of them separated, and Imo Qingcheng stared at Qin Wendian. Wendian, don't return to Chu, okay? I'll go with you, we'll roam the world together. Qin Wendian stared at the haggard countenance of Imo Qingcheng, yet her beautiful eyes were still as clear as ever. Risking her life to enter the dark forest, was it just to tell him that the royal capital was in danger? Silly lass. Qin Wendian kissed Imo Qingcheng's forehead, as he hugged her tightly once more. Qingcheng, Qin Wendian, will never betray you in this life. Imo Qingcheng's body trembled, as her eyes reddened. However, she still had a radiant smile on her face, as beautiful as ever. Everything was worth it. It was as though she already knew what Qin Wendian would do. He, who valued relationships and loyalty, would still want to return to the royal capital. In that case, she was willing to accompany him. Regardless of whether he ascended to the heavens or stepped on the Yellow Springs path, her heart would never waver. Qin Wentian inclined his head, as he stared into the distance. Over there, was the direction of the royal capital of Chu. This trip to the royal capital, he, Qin Wentian, swore that he would definitely make the royal clan of Chu history. Chapter 205. In the royal capital of Chu, within the royal palace, within an elegant villa, there was a group of armored soldiers standing guard outside, exuding an austere killing intent. In the room, a row of young men and women were kneeling in front of the bed. In front of them, the emperor of Chu was on the verge of death, as though he would pass away at any moment. Wu Wei. The sovereign king looked at a young man, his voice weak. Father. Chu Wuwei stared at his dying father as he sighed in his heart. No matter if you were an emperor or a commoner, when you were on the verge of death, you would always be in such a state. No wonder there were so many people in the Grand Xia continent who were all pursuing the path of cultivation. Not only did the path of cultivation grant them immense strength, it also granted them a longer lifespan. After I die, help your younger brother to protect the bloodline of the royal clan of Chu. The lifeless eyes of the Emperor King flickered with a hint of hope as he stared at his eldest son. Why didn't Big Brother inherit the throne? Upon hearing the words of the Emperor King, the eyes of the person on the right of Chu Wuwei widened as he spoke with an unconvinced tone. Even if his father was about to die, he still wanted to speak up for his elder brother. In his eyes, his eldest brother, Chu Wuwei, was the most perfect of them all. He was also the most suitable candidate to inherit the throne of Chu. As for his third brother, he didn't like him at all. The emperor stared at the second prince, Chu Mang, as he sighed in his heart. These three sons of his were all exceedingly outstanding. The first prince, Chu Wuwei, was indifferent to fame and fortune because he couldn't cultivate. He didn't yearn for power struggles, but even so, he had a terrifying intellect and methods. Not only that, his character was extremely well-liked. Other than the fact that he couldn't cultivate, he could be said to be perfect, even surpassing Chu Tianjiao. The Emperor King was even thinking that if he wanted to seize the throne, how confident would Chu Tianjiao be? The second prince, Chu Mang, was impulsive and clumsy. His IQ was the lowest, but his martial prowess was the highest. He was the most outstanding out of the three brothers, and in the entire Chu country, there weren't many who were as dazzling as him. If Chu Wuwei was the one with the highest level of talent in the martial Dao, that would be the true definition of perfection. Sadly, nobody was perfect. The third prince, Chu Tianjiao, was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate for him, and was deeply loved by him. The only flaw he had was that he was too arrogant. Shut up. Chu Wuwei berated Chu Mang. Momentarily, Chu Mang turned his head away, refusing to look at the emperor, causing the emperor to sigh endlessly. They were all his sons, how could he not love them? Father, as long as I exist, the bloodline of the royal family will exist. Chu Wuwei calmly stated. The emperor stared at him, as though waiting for him to say something else. Sadly, Chu Wuwei didn't say that he would help his younger brother, Chu Tianjiao. He only promised that as long as he was alive, the bloodline of the royal clan would survive. Chu Tianjiao naturally understood as well. The sovereign king turned his gaze away and slowly closed his eyes. His breathing gradually weakened, very swiftly, the sound of the emperor's death resounded throughout the entire Chu country. Outside the royal palace, countless nobles of Chu entered. They had been waiting outside the royal palace for a long time. The emperor who once shook the heavens and earth had finally closed his eyes forever. The Chu country would soon become the world of the younger generation. Naturally, there would be someone to take care of the emperor's funeral. At the highest peak of the royal palace, Chu Wuwei and Chu Tianjiao stood together, gazing down at the majestic royal palace. Behind them, there was another person. This person was none other than Chu Tianjiao's personal guard, a peak-level Yuanfu expert. Although Chu Tianjiao's name wasn't that famous in Chu, Chu Tianjiao knew very well how powerful Chu Tianjiao was. In the entire royal clan, there were only a few people who could be compared to him. Elder brother, I'm about to succeed the throne. After a long period of silence, Chu Tianjiao finally spoke. Chu Wuwei lightly nodded his head, only to hear Chu Tianjiao continuing, Father always wants me to consult you. Elder brother, what do you think I should do after I succeed the throne? Today, the Chu country is already in a precarious situation. There's a possibility that we might be consigned to eternal damnation at any moment. Chu Wuwei calmly stated, don't fight with the Qin clan anymore. Vindicate Qin Wu, grant Qin Wu the position of the martial king, and allocate a few cities to the Qin clan. At the same time, don't hunt down the students of the Emperor's Star Academy. It's enough for the 9 mystical palace to see, but don't push things too far. Elder brother, aren't you underestimating the power of the royal clan? The Qin clan started a rebellion, and the royal clan admitted their mistakes. What does this mean? Isn't this the same as slapping our own faces? The Emperor's Star Academy is already like fire and water with our Chu country, how can we coexist? The best way is to exterminate them all. As for those who manage to escape, they might grow stronger, but don't tell me that our royal academy and our royal clan won't grow stronger. Chu Tianjiao gazed at the distant lands, his calm voice not concealing his wild ambitions. Is that so? Let's not talk about the others. If Qin Wendian from the Emperor's Star Academy breaks through to the Heavenly Dipper realm before you, with the current strength of the royal clan, how can you protect yourselves? Chu Wuwei calmly asked. That's why he has to die. Chu Tianjiao's voice contained a strong determination. If he has already left, why do you want him to die? Chu Wuwei asked. When Qiu Mo was captured, he had already pledged his allegiance to us. He said that he would be able to find Mustang. With Mustang here, with Qin Wentian's personality, how could he not come? Chu Tianjiao slowly shifted his gaze onto Chu Wuwei. Chu Wuwei similarly stared at Chu Tianjiao. Shaking his head, he turned and departed, leaving behind a message, if you cause the Chu clan to fall into danger, I will replace you. Audacious. The person behind Chu Tianjiao roared in rage, as a tyrannical aura gushed forth, enveloping Chu Wuwei. Impudent. Chu Tianjiao turned his head and berated his protector, that's my elder brother. Yes. That protector nodded his head, as his aura dissipated. After which, Chu Wuwei once again departed the area. Chu Tianjiao's eyes flashed with a terrifying sharpness as he murmured in his heart, although father never said it out loud, he always felt that I'm inferior to you in all aspects other than strength. I will prove it to you. In one of the courtyards of the royal clan of Chu, the Mo clan, Mustang, Luo Huan and Fan Lu were all present. Before Dai was captured, they had no way of leaving the royal capital. Mo Qingcheng had informed old Gu and arranged for them to stay here. Someone's coming. Mustang, who was seated in a pavilion, abruptly opened his eyes. Was there still no way to escape after all? Luo Huan, Fan Lu, go to the lake, Mustang suddenly commanded. If I'm not here, they might suspect something. Fatty, go to the lake, there's still time. Luo Huan knew that her teacher's senses were extremely strong, and they shouldn't have been discovered yet. Fan Li's eyes flickered, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. After which, he heavily nodded his head, Teacher, Sister Luo Huan, be careful. I will think of a way to save you. After speaking, Fan Lu dived into the depths of the lake. Only by doing so would he be able to conceal his aura. Indeed, not long after, the courtyard was surrounded. When Mustang and Luo Huan saw a silhouette in front of them, their eyes turned incomparably cold. Qiu Mo, you traitor. Mustang coldly spat. A wise man submits to circumstances. Luckily, it wasn't difficult to find all of Mo Qingcheng's residences. After searching through them one by one, I finally found her. Most probably, Qin Wentian has also been hidden by her. Qiu Mo's eyes flashed with a hint of jealousy. Mo Qingcheng, the most perfect woman in Chu, was willing to risk her life for the sake of Qin Wentian. Normally, she would ignore him, one of the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. Qiu Mo, have you forgotten about Yi Wukei's ending? Luo Huan stared cold at Qiu Mo, he. Qiu Mo's countenance turned frosty. He knew that Qin Wentian's strength had already surpassed him, and this caused him to be filled with jealousy. Luo Huan, although she isn't as beautiful as Mo Qingcheng, she can still be considered one of the most beautiful women in the world. Look at that sexy figure of hers, he. Qiu Mo didn't conceal the greed in his eyes as he swept his gaze over Luo Huan's body. Luo Huan's countenance turned extremely unsightly. I will get the third prince, no, His Majesty, to bestow you to me. Qiu Mo didn't conceal his true nature. Even if he couldn't obtain Mo Qingcheng, it was still a wonderful thing to obtain Luo Huan's body. I really want to see how long the emperor's authority can last. Mustang's voice was ice-cold. Currently, the leaders of the Emperor's Star Academy should have already met up with those from the Qin clan. The news of Mustang and Luo Huan being captured quickly circulated around the royal capital. This was undoubtedly the royal clan's own doing. They wanted Qin Wentian to appear. Chu Tianjiao had already viewed Qin Wentian as a huge threat. Such a character would definitely break through to Heavenly Dipper in the future. He had to die. And at the same time when Mustang and Luo Huan were captured, news circulated from the front lines. The Qin clan had formed a few elite troops, and they were invincible as they rapidly advanced towards the royal capital. There were rumors that these elite troops were the elites of all the troops under the Qin clan's control. Not only that, there were also many experts from the Emperor's Star Academy, including the vice-headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy. These people were all terrifying characters that could easily take the head of an enemy general. Naturally, the troops of the royal clan had no way to defend against them. Naturally, other than the experts from the Emperor's Star Academy, in this war between the Qin clan and the royal clan, the Qin clan's troops had also displayed an astonishing level of strength. There were even many powerful Yuanfu cultivators among them. This was especially so for the elite troops that were currently advancing towards the royal clan. This caused people to faintly feel that the strength of the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City was only a small portion of their total strength. Maybe, the all-powerful troops that followed Qin Wu all those years ago had never truly disappeared. Not only that, they had even nurtured many descendants. All of these undoubtedly indicated that the royal capital of Chu was about to welcome a violent storm. This storm was even more intense compared to the one between the royal clan and the Emperor's Star Academy. Because this time around, other than the Emperor's Star Academy, the strength of the Qin clan was also starting to erupt. And just as this storm was brewing, the young man who was determined to take revenge stepped on a demonic beast whose eyes flickered with a golden light as he exited the dark forest and entered the royal capital. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.